Chapter 37. Apologize. When Yi Weiyang heard Beitang Zixuan's words, her eyebrows twitch-chaptered, and she coldly snorted. She turned her face away and ignored Beitang Zixuan. Feng Zhiyao could tell from Yi Weiyang's expression that he definitely hated Beitang Zixuan. She couldn't help but laugh inwardly. This brat didn't know that Beitang Zixuan had taken a fancy to him, did he? Yaoer, stay. Situ Yele did not wish for Feng Zhiyao to leave so quickly either. Yaoer. Aren't you calling me too intimate? Xian Yuan Haofei's face turned ashen, but he could not show it on his face. The palm that was hidden in his sleeve clenched into a fist and anger rose from his chapterist. He was already depressed to have met the Beitang brother and sister halfway through the journey. Now that he heard Su Chapter a intimate address, he really had the urge to kick Situ Yele off the cruise boat. But he had to endure it. Situ Yele ignored Xian Yuan Haofei's glare. He continued to ask Feng Zhiyao, hoping that she wouldn't leave so quickly. Yele, when did you get so close to Miss Feng? A mocking smile appeared on Beitang Ziqian's lips. In the future, he would seem to be interested in the girl who had been divorced by the king of Qi. This was not a good sign. Did not. Situ Yele thought about how he couldn't be at odds with King of Qi, Xian Yuan Haofei, so he hesitated for a moment before calming himself down and explaining in a panic. Seeing Yi Weiyang and Feng Zhiyao leave, Beitang Zixuan became anxious. She walked towards Feng Zhiyao and said with a smile, Sister Feng, the lotus here is so beautiful. Besides, it's not late yet, not to mention you're hungry. Why don't you eat some food before you leave this place? When Beitang Zixuan saw the roasted pigeon paper bag in Feng Zhiyao's hands, her thoughts stirred as she considered it. It seemed like she was right. However, seeing she was smiling so sweetly, Feng Zhiyao was unable to make contact with the overbearing Beitang Zixuan from before. Was there any need to call out to her so intimately? Sigh, it was all because of Yi Weiyang. Thinking up to here, Feng Zhiyao fiercely glared at Yi Weiyang, making Yi Weiyang feel completely confused. Why was Yaoer staring at him? You can continue to enjoy the boat. We'll be leaving first. Feng Zhiyao decided to leave first. She didn't have a good impression of Xian Yuan Haofei and Beitang Ziqian. As for Situ Yele, he was feeling better. Seeing that Feng Zhiyao was really going to drag the pretty man away, Beitang Zixuan was instantly angry from embarrassment. She took the opportunity when Feng Zhiyao passed by her, wanting to let Feng Zhiyao accidentally fall into the lake to vent the grievances she got during the mat chapter. However, how could Feng Zhiyao be careless? She moved with lightning speed and grabbed Beitang Zixuan's long sleeves. She intentionally let out a sound, as if she had lost her balance, causing the cruise boat to sway a few times. Splash! Water splashed. Woo, save me! Who would have thought that Beitang Zixuan was also a landlubber? The expressions of the people on the cruise boat changed drastically when they saw the two of them fall into the water together. Seeing Beitang Zixuan fall into the lake, Beitang Ziqian hurriedly jumped into the lake to save her, who did not know how to swim. Situ Yele was a landlubber. Seeing Feng Zhiyao fall into the water made him extremely anxious. He was just about to call someone to help Feng Zhiyao out of the lake. Yi Weiyang was just thinking about throwing away the spirit serpent sword, then jumping into the lake to save her. However, he didn't expect Xian Yuan Haofei to nimbly grab Feng Zhiyao before him. Feng Zhiyao couldn't have imagined that it's actually Xian Yuan Haofei who picked her up instead of Yi Weiyang. She felt a little depressed in her heart. She was good at swimming, why was he so eager to save her? That made she couldn't punish Beitang Zixuan in the water. Xian Yuan Haofei held the beauty in his arms, lowering his eyes and asking urgently, Yaoer, are you all right? When he saw Feng Zhiyao fall into the water, he couldn't stop the panic in his heart. Without thinking, he used his fastest speed to save her. He only knew that for the first time in his life, his heart was in a panic, as if someone had grabbed it. No matter what, I still thank you for saving me. Although there was no need to save her like this, she still had to thank him. Feng Zhiyao realized that his body WHI chapter was a little tense, so she quickly retreated out of his embrace. Yi Weiyang glanced at her clothes that had been soaked by the lake water. At this moment, she was dressed very thinly, her muslin dress pressed against her delicate body. Her curves were extremely distinct. She had a devilish body and a fiery soul, as if. Bra. Sparks flashed in Yi Weiyang's eyes, and she quickly glanced at Xianyuan Haofei's group. Seeing them turn around to look at the other cruise boat, Yi Weiyang felt a sour feeling in her heart. Did this mean that they only shifted their gazes after seeing Yao's current seductive appearance? He quickly took off his robe and draped it over her. Don't catch chapter a cold. He could not let other men see the seductive chapter arm of his beloved girl. Beitang Ziqian was extremely anxious when he saw his sister unconscious. Puff! After Beitang Zishuan woke up, she spat out a mouthful of water. Big brother, it's her. It was Feng Zhiyao who pushed me into the lake. A pair of beautiful eyes that seemed to have poison inside stared at Feng Zhiyao and said angrily. Out of nowhere, if I push you into the lake, I'll be dumb enough to fall into the lake with you. Feng Zhiyao ungracefully rolled her eyes. After being refuted in Su chapter a manner by her, Beitang Zishuan was speech-chapterless. However, she was stifled to death in her heart, causing her to be in Su chapter a sorry state in front of the man she adored. Feng Zhiyao, you must be the one who pushed my little sister into the lake. Quickly, apologize to her. Thus, when Beitang Ziqian saw his little sister's pitiful appearance, his heart chaptered greatly. He hurriedly hugged his little sister and used his inner strength to dry her clothes. At this moment, his handsome face was deathly pale, and he began to berate Feng Zhiyao. Apologize? Ha ha ha. How funny. If someone need to apologize, it should be your little sister to apologize to me. Feng Zhiyao stretch-chaptered lazily, yawned gracefully, and pulled down the white jade hairpin, using her hands as a comb. Her black hair was like a waterfall. Under the faint warmth of the sun, it emitted a faint, enchapteranting luster. As the wind blew gently, it carried with it a few strands of soft hair that mesmerized people, naughtily brushing against her beautiful face that was as fine as porcelain. So beautiful. Beitang Ziqian suddenly chapter-oaked on his words, as if he wanted to curse. The breathtaking beauty and the lithe and graceful figure appeared perfectly on her body. Everyone on the cruise boat was stunned by what they saw. This was especially true for Beitang Zishuan. The jealousy in her heart was like a venomous snake that was devouring her. Feng Zhiyao raised her hand and ruffled her silk-like hair. Her wide sleeves fell off, revealing her white arm that was as smooth as white jade. Her whole body was leisurely and lazily exuding all sorts of chapter arm and grace. In contrast to the beautiful lakeshore light, she was like a beautiful floating cloud, looking even more mesmerizing and free. Chapter 38 Meet a handsome guy, Weiyang, let's go. Feng Zhiyao couldn't be bothered to care about them. Since no pretty boy for her anymore, she might as well go back and eat Weiyang. Alright. Yi Weiyang had been wanting to leave for a long time, so he walked over and picked up Feng Zhiyao. He too chaptered the lotus leaf with his foot and left. Leaving behind the Beitang siblings, Xianyuan Haofei and Situ Yele looked to EA chapter other. Very soon, Xianyuan Haofei was the first to recover from his shock. He ruthlessly glared at Beitang Zishuan. Big brother, he has already left. Being stared at by Xianyuan Haofei, Beitang Zishuan felt extremely uneasy. When she saw the stunned expression on Beitang Ziqian's face, she hurriedly raised her elbow to remind him unhappily. On the way back, Beitang Zishuan asked Beitang Ziqian, Big brother, do you like Feng Zhiyao? No, she's a woman whose engagement was cancelled by King of Qi, how could I like her? Beitang Ziqian hurriedly denied. He must have been possessed by an evil spirit when he thought Feng Zhiyao was beautiful. You better don't. If cousin Cisidor finds out, you'll be in for it. Beitang Zixuan bluntly teased him. When Beitang Ziqian thought of Plum Villa's cousin Fu Shuiyan, his expression immediately chapteranged greatly. Don't mention her to me. The voice was cold. Big brother, when mother was still alive, she already arranged this marriage for you. Even if you don't like cousin sister, it won't help. Beitang Zixuan sighed. She recalled how Yi Weiyang had treated Feng Zhiyao with Su-chapter gentleness. She was about to go crazy with jealousy. At this moment, she couldn't help but feel sympathy for Fu Shuiyan, who had fallen in love with her big brother. Zixuan, I know my limits. Beitang Ziqian supported his forehead as if in pain. Oh. She knew her big brother very well. He did not like it when others were worrying about his love life. Thus, when she heard his words, she fell silent. However, her hatred of Feng Zhiyao grew bigger and bigger. A sinister ray of light flashed across the bottom of Beitang Zixuan's eyes. Perhaps if someone got rid of her, she would be able to get the beautiful man. After Situ Yele and Xianyuan Haofei went their separate ways, they went to Jade Lotus store to pick up Lady his mother Madame Yen and bring her home. Madame Yen continued to chapter at her all the way. Layer, the princess has a deep affection for you. You must not fail her. It was just these words. Situ Yele remembered the beautiful and pure woman on the cruise boat. A sense of loss flashed in his heart because she was no longer a virgin. Situ Yele didn't want to argue with Madame Yen, so he nodded his head helplessly. Actually, this wasn't what he was thinking. Right now, he didn't want to fulfill his engagement with Xianyuan Lingxi at all. Xianyuan Haofei recalled that there was no scarlet sandalwood on Feng Zhiyao's jade white lotus root arm. Doubt slowly turned into jealousy and hatred. But who was the man who had obtained her virginity? He would find a way to find that man and kill him. The night was like water, the willow branch chapter on the moon. Weiyang, why aren't you saying anything? When Feng Zhiyao saw Yi Weiyang's sullen expression after two of them returned to Begonia Garden together. Therefore, she had no chapterois but to speak first to break the silence between them. Yaoer, is it, that I can't satisfy you? Only with him. Yi Weiyang originally wanted to question Feng Zhiyao, but when she saw Feng Zhiyao's smiling face, she really couldn't scold her. Yi Weiyang. I don't have anything to do with him. They should be chapteratting. What's more, if anything really happens between me and him, I should at least strip myself naked. Yi Weiyang, if you don't have any proof, don't let your imagination run wild. Feng Zhiyao had already guessed that Yi Weiyang was silent because of this matter, so she directly fired off a round of fire at Yi Weiyang. She was depressed to death. Yi Weiyang's doubt was dispelled by her scolding. That's right, Yaoer didn't strip naked to do Su-chapter intimate things with that man. He seemed to be stingy. Yaoer, I'm sorry. He could only blame himself for caring too mu-chapter about Yaoer. Yi Weiyang embraced her and embarrassedly apologized. Weiyang, sometime what you see with your own eyes isn't real. If you like me, you should trust me. Seeing him hesitating, Feng Zhiyao immediately secretly laughed in her heart. Fortunately, Yi Weiyang was still very easy to deal with. Yes, her beauty had always been unstoppable. All right. Yi Weiyang was suddenly kissed by Feng Zhiyao on his handsome face, and immediately nodded with a happy smile. Yi Weiyang finally became Feng Zhiyao's bodyguard for a month. On the last day, Yi Weiyang reluctantly left the Begonia Garden. Eldest miss, why don't you hold young Master Yi? Ziyun was curious. She had always thought that young Master Yi would be a good person for the eldest young miss. However, young Master Yi had said that he would leave. Feng Zhiyao hadn't intended to keep him. Eating one dish all the time, it's so boring. Ah, why I'm saying it to a little girl like you, you don't understand. Feng Zhiyao raised her eyebrows. Although she said that, she was very happy. She finally tricked Yi Weiyang away. Although this method was a little evil, she felt that sacrificing for her great dream wouldn't be a problem. Strange, young Master Yi likes you so mu-chapter. how could he bear to leave? Ziyun still had an expression of disbelief. Ziyun, today is the 15th day of August. Let's go to the Jiu-In temple in Nanyu Mountain and pray for blessings. Feng Zhiyao smiled and chapter-arranged the topic. Good, good, it's said that the Jiu-In temple's pear blossoms are at full bloom. Ziyun smiled and quickly went to prepare the things for pray. The Nanyu Mountains range was long and winding, filled with green water and green hills, full of snow-white pear blossoms, as beautiful as the clouds and frost. Under the blue sky and white clouds, wisps of smoke rose into the air as a winding path climbed upwards. At the foot of the mountain, there were many fancy carriages and countless pilgrims. It was only because today was the 15th day that there were many people coming up and down the mountain. Eldest miss, if we go up, we'll have to get off the carriage and walk. Ziyun lifted the curtain of the carriage and smiled. All right, then let's stop the carriage at the foot of the mountain. We will walk up by ourselves, and it will be a sign of our sincere desire for blessings. Feng Zhiyao frowned and suddenly smiled. Is this the Feng family's young miscarriage? Behind the carriage, there was a handsome man in white clothes. His hair was tied in a bun, and sunlight shone through the branch-chapters of the pear blossom onto his handsome face, giving him a sense of warmth. Chapter 39. Come across. Feng Zhiyao got off the carriage and instantly smelled the fragrant scent of pear flowers. She looked into the distance and saw beautiful green between the snow-white pear flowers. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a man in white clothes, and she smiled sweetly. Young Master Li. You're also coming to the Jiu-In temple to pray. When you lifted the curtain of the carriage earlier, I thought I saw the wrong person. It's really you. Li Mincan nodded his head and smiled gently. The blazing sun shone down with a scorching light from above. Feng Zhiyao slightly frowned. Ziyun hurriedly opened the oil paper umbrella, smiled and said, Eldest miss, it's cool on the mountain, shouldn't we go up now? That's fine too. At the foot of the mountain, it's so hot. Let's go up the mountain. Therefore, Feng Zhiyao laughed softly, all right. Can I call you Yaoer? Li Mincan her call him young Master Li. Li Minghan felt weird. He raised his eyebrows and smiled as he asked, of course, you don't have to call me young Master Li. You can call me Mincan. All right. Anyway, the name is just a code. Feng Zhiyao covered her mouth and giggled. Then let's pray for blessings together. My pleasure. Li Mincan's black eyes shifted as he smiled and nodded. His snow-white silk robe swayed gently in the mountain breeze. His picturesque face seemed to be coated with a layer of dazzling light, making his appearance handsome and magnificent. Beautiful man. What a beautiful man. Feng Zhiyao looked at him with her heart full of lust. How good would it be if she could eat him? Miss, young Master Li is already walking in front, why are you still in a daze? Ziyun quickly reminded. Oh, then let's keep up. Feng Zhiyao smiled. On the way, Li Mincan's witty remarks made both Feng Zhiyao and Ziyun laugh. The three of them walked on the bluestone path up to the mountain. However, the Jiu-In temple was built on the mountainside of Nanyu Mountain. The temple was grand and imposing, and the entire temple was hidden in the snow-white pear forest. The corners of the temple revealed apricot yellow color that exuded a mysterious Buddhist feeling. Within the Jiu-In temple, there were many guests. In a wide square in front of the entrance, many hawkers were selling incense sticks, underworld money, and all sorts of small things, attracting many people to ask for their prices. Inside the temple was a 12-foot-tall Maitreya booth. It could be said that he was a monk with a big belly. The sunlight shards sprinkled on the body of the Buddha, giving it a golden glow. Yaoer, I've made an appointment with the host here to discuss some matters. Can you wait for me at the Qin pavilion in the back of the mountain? Li Mincan asked her after lighting the candles and burning incense. All right. Feng Zhiyao nodded with a smile. seeing Li Mingyang following a little sham to see the host, so she ordered Zi Yun to donate 88 silver taels to Jiao Yin Temple before they prepared to leave for the back of the mountain. Eldest miss, don't you ask a sign? Zi Yun was puzzled. Didn't other girls come to the Jiao Yin Temple just to ask for a marriage sign? I don't believe that. Feng Zhiyao shook her head. Zi Yun, let's go to the Qin Yin Pavilion in the back of the mountains and wait for young Master Li. Zi Yun immediately followed. Surrounded by peaks, there was a limpid blue pond. The lake water was clear and transparent, with rows of pear trees on the shore. The wind blew past and the petals fell into the pond, creating ripples. The Qin Yin Pavilion was built from pear trees and sat on the shore. Inside the pavilion was an exquisite, ancient and unadorned 9-string zither. Eldest miss, this place is so beautiful. Zi Yun couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of flowers. With a light sniff, one would feel relaxed and happy. Suddenly, melodious sound of flute filled with a few hints of melancholy sounded, as if it was a depressing knot. Suddenly, it turned, like a stream flowing through a mountain. When Feng Zhiyao heard this, she couldn't help but gently move towards the zither and press the strings with her delicate fingers. As a result, the beautiful and melodious music immediately rang out, greatly startling Feng Zhiyao. It seemed like human, as if it knew what she was thinking. The soft and moving music lingered endlessly around the beam, like flowing clouds and flowing water, like the heavenly sound of music, causing people to feel comfortable upon hearing it. Soon, the sound of the zither drowned out the melodious sound of the flute. When she played to the climax, green clothes fluttered in the wind, cool mountain breeze gently blew, causing Feng Zhiyao's black hair to drift down like a waterfall, dancing like a butterfly. At this moment, she was even more chapter-arming than a flower. Lady Zither's skills are good. Clear and melodious voice of a man sounded, like the gurgling of spring water, causing people to want to hear it again. In the distance, a young man appeared under the pear tree. He looked to be around 19 years old, and a fan-shaped white jade hairpin was in his hair. His black hair fluttered in the wind like seaweed, and he looked like a fairy descending into the mortal world. Through the branch-chapters of the pear tree, the mottled sunlight shone on his body. His sword-like eyebrows were like pictures, his starry eyes were bright, his lips were the color of chapterary, and his skin was the color of snow. His pink long robe wrapped around his almost perfect body curves. When he looked at her with his bright, starry eyes, she only felt her heart palpitating, and her chapter-arming little face flushed red. It would be great if she could eat Su Chapter an immortal-like man. But why was this man sitting in a wooden wheel chapterer? What a pity! She looked at his hands that were as white jade holding onto the wooden wheel, a trace of pity flashed in her eyes. Her eyes were filled with mist, and her heart a-chaptered. How could a beautiful man be a cripple? His handsome face looked very pale, especially when he suddenly coughed a few times. The servant beside him quickly handed him a white silk handkerchief chapterif. Ah, isn't this pretty boy's body too weak? Young master's flute skill is extremely good. Feng Zhiyao got up and walked towards him, smiling sweetly while looking at his peerless handsome face. Just like that, he calmly stared at her. His warm, sun-like smile gave off a warm feeling to those within 3 feet of him. It's a pity that the flute is good and the song can also be considered good. However, young master is preoccupied, so that a calming heart I played later overshadowed young master's flute tune. Feng Zhiyao pursed her lips into a smile and told him everything she had heard. Hearing Feng Zhiyao's words, his eyes sparkled as he stared at Feng Zhiyao. This girl was good at the zither, and she was a straightforward person. May I know lady's name? Chapter 40 Li Jinran. Feng Zhiyao looked closely. The pretty man had long and slender eyebrows similar to Li Minkan's. His eyelashes were thick and thin, and his eyebrows slightly curled upwards. Following his speech chapter, he gently trembled like a cicada's wings, adding an elegant and fair look to his fair white face. His sun-like smile made people feel that he was very close and kind, a gentleman with modesty. She smiled sweetly, her melodious voice drifting from her lips. My name is Feng Zhiyao. Young master, what about you? Hearing this, the pink-clothed man's eyes suddenly widened, appearing extremely surprised. The corners of his lips raised slightly as he blurted out, You are the young miss of the Feng family that rumored to have been repudiated by King of Qi? In the end, he felt that his words were a bit too hurtful. He quickly smiled apologetically and said, Miss Feng, I didn't do it on purpose. What I said just now, I'm sorry. This is the truth. I don't need your apologies. Feng Zhiyao didn't take it seriously at all. Therefore, she looked at the man in pink with a smile and said, You still haven't told me your name. I am Li Jinran. Seeing her flower-like smile, he was stunned for a moment before nodding his head. He thought to himself, what a talented and luscious woman, but why was repudiated by the King of Qi? Good name. The man himself was better. Why was there another person surnamed Li? Cough. Li Jinran coughed a few times. He took the white silk cloth from the green-robed servant beside him and elegantly wiped the corners of his lips. Second brother, why are you here? A gentle voice came from behind Feng Zhiyao. Big brother, cough. I heard from Ban Xia that the pear blossom is beautiful, so I came out to see the blossom. Li Jinran raised his head and looked towards the source of the voice. Mingcan, have you finished chapter-adding with the host? Oh, your brothers. No wonder both of them had the surname Li. How did you know EA chapter other? Li Mincan's curious gaze descended upon her and Li Jinran. Just now, Miss Feng played Su chapter a wonderful song, Li Jinran explained to Li Mincan. Why is Miss Feng calling my big brother's name in Su chapter a intimate way? A hint of sadness flashed across his bright eyes. Oh, so it's like that. Ban Xia, it's windy here, hurry up and push second young master to the meditation room to rest. Li Mingsan's handsome eyebrows twitch-chaptered. He was worried about his younger brother's health, so he ordered the servant named Ban Xia to quickly push Li Jinran to the meditation room to rest. Yes, young master. Ban Xia nodded and quickly started. Mingcan, wait a moment, I have something to say to your brother. Feng Zhiyao called out when she saw the beautiful man was about to leave. What? Since when did she get to know his brother so well? Li Mincan's heart was in a trance for a moment. Oh, good. Thus, Feng Zhiyao walked over to Li Jinran with quick steps. She slightly glanced at Ban Xia. Li Jinran saw her expression, so he used his gaze to signal for Ban Xia to retreat further. Miss Feng, what do you want to say to me? Li Jinran asked with a slight smile, seeing how mysterious she was. I want to ask you a question. Feng Zhiyao smiled evilly. Miss Feng, what do you want to say? Li Jinran was startled by her look of big bad wolf looking at the lamb, but his manner was extremely good, and his voice was still clear and pleasant. Li Jinran, answer me first. Do you have a mat chapter now? This was the most important question, and it was better to clarify it. No, why do you ask? Li Jinran was completely confused by her question. Answer my question first. Feng Zhiyao winked at him with a playful smile. Hearing this, Ziyun was startled. Could it be that the eldest miss has taken a fancy to the young master? But how could he make the eldest young lady happy? Li Jinran looked at her seductive and curvaceous body, and the two of them were so close together, causing his handsome face to turn red. He averted his gaze, lowering his head and sighing, No, in my case, WHI chapter girl would want to marry to me? Second brother, you are the second young master of our Seoul chapter Ace Manor. How could there be no young lady to marry to you? Hearing these words, Li Mincan somewhat disagreed in his heart, and so he began to console him. Big brother, don't comfort me. With my current state, how can I give a lady happiness? Li Jinran lightly shook his head as his gaze landed on the fragrant white pear blossom. Miss Feng, I'm not feeling well. I'll be going back to the meditation room first. Ban Xia, give me a push. After Li Jinran said this, he actually felt that he had fled in desperation and felt inferior to himself. Huh? So quickly. Feng Zhiyao reluctantly watched the fairy-like beautiful man leave. On the way down, Feng Zhiyao asked Li Mincan, what happened to your brother's legs? He became like this during cultivation when he was young. Li Mincanen recalled the painful past, his face stifled as he sighed. Isn't there a way to save him? Feng Zhiyao was very curious. When my father was alive, he invited many famous doctors, but none of them was able to make him stand up. Li Mincan's thoughts drifted far away, feeling sorry for his younger brother's legs. Then why does he live at Jiao Yin Temple? She asked again. My second brother likes pear blossoms, so I arranged for him to stay at Jiao Yin Temple to avoid enmity in the martial world. The Soul Chapter's manners business of killing naturally offended many people. Oh, no. The dress that Feng Zhiyao wore today was too long. She accidentally tripped on a rock and twisted her foot. My feet hurt. Yaoer, don't move. Let me see. Li Mincan hurriedly told her not to move. He gently picked her up and gracefully sat on a rock. Eldest miss, are you all right? Ziyun stepped forward and asked anxiously. Feng Zhiyao yelled out loud in pain. Perhaps because Li Minghan was a figure of the martial world, so he didn't care the rules so much. He helped Feng Zhiyao to take off her stockings and saw that her ankles were swollen and red. Ziyun, your eldest miss foot has been injured. There's a medicine store at the foot of the mountain, eldest miss, you wait first. I will go down the mountain to buy some medicine. After Ziyun finished speaking, she quickened her pace and descended the mountain. Silly girl. Feng Zhiyao gazed at Ziyun's back as a trace of warmth flashed through her heart. It seems that you can't walk down the mountain by yourself. If you don't mind, I'll carry you down the mountain. Li Mincan frowned when he saw this. Feng Zhiyao politely nodded. Looking at Feng Zhiyao at Su Chapter a close distance actually made his heart palpitate with fear. Her pretty face was soft and smooth, pure and chapter-arming. Her eyes were as clear as water, without a trace of worldly customs. She was like a fairy from the moon, elegant and enchapteranting. Why are you only looking at me and not carrying me? Seeing him staring straight at her, Feng Zhiyao's eyes shifted and being playful. Chapter 41 Do you like me? Min Can, Feng Zhiyao wrapped her white and tender lotus arms around his neck. Whi chapter surprised Li Min Can, because Feng Zhiyao's voice suddenly became flirtatious and gentle. Do you like me? Feng Zhiyao seriously looked into his dark and deep eyes. Li Mincan's handsome face immediately burned with passion. Glimmers danced in his eyes as his heart skipped a beat. He wondered why the beautiful woman asked Su Chapter a question. Don't you like me? I knew that no one would like Yaoer. Sai, young Master Situ said that he wants to marry me as an concubine. Why don't I close my eyes and follow him? Feng Zhiyao deliberately probed him, faintly saying. Yaoer. Li Mincan didn't know why his mind was thrown into disarray by Feng Zhiyao's words, but he immediately roared in anger. I know my name. You don't have to remind me so loudly. No, she had to keep up the good work. Her plan to hunting beautiful man couldn't be wasted just like that. Yaoer, what's wrong with you? Why do you ask me this question? Li Mincan looked at her with suspicion. I'm bored. She rolled her eyes at him, as if to push him away, and stood up herself. Yaoer, be careful. Li Mincan saw her trembling and wanted to stand up, so he quickly stopped her. Luckily, Li Mincan had already chaptered out his hand, otherwise, Feng Zhiyao might have fallen down on all fours. Why are you so willful? Didn't I say it already? I'll carry you on my back. Although he didn't want to admit that he liked this little girl, his emotions were still affected by her every move. He was about to pick her up again, she tightened her grip on his neck. Li Mincan was so scared by Feng Zhiyao that he didn't even dare to move. His heart felt like it was about to burst out of his chapterist. Feng Zhiyao swallowed her saliva and slowly moved her chapterary lips up close to Li Mincan. In her heart, she was thinking, if I can't kiss that very pretty man, then it's fine if I kiss his brother. Thinking of this, she suddenly closed her eyes and kissed him. Oh, heavens, Li Mincan had unexpectedly used Su Chapter's speed to cover her chapterary lips. His handsome face even turned red. Li Mincan, what do you mean by this? A girl took Su Chapter an initiative, you actually, or do you think Yaoer is unfaithful as the king of Qi said? So you looks down on me? She made a tearful face and looked at him with a resentful eye. Sigh, forget about it. I don't believe that I, Feng Zhiyao, can't find a man. Humph. She gave a cold snort and intentionally straightened her chapterist. With a coquettish smile on her lips, she said, Jirun and I really get along. I'll go seduce this beautiful man. Feng Zhiyao had said that on purpose, but she still stayed in his arms and didn't really want to go back to Jiuyin Temple. Li Mincan's handsome face immediately darkened as he glared at her. What are you planning to do? Your ankle has been injured like this, and you're still not calm. She actually wanted to seduce a man, and that man was his younger brother. It's none of your business. Scram. She was fucking giving him face, finally came up with a plan to seduce him, but who would have thought that this man would push her away, causing her self-confidence to collapse with a loud crash. There was really no justice to it, he was still blabbering at her like that. I said that out of concern for you. It was the first time Li Mincan had met Su Chapter, a willful woman. Okay, you have a foot injury. Don't be angry, okay? Seeing her pout, he couldn't bear to curse her. Humph. I shouldn't have saved you that day. You are just an ingrate, she was filled with regret. She had always been a murderer. This was the first time she had gone out of her way to save someone, but he had been so unromantic. Li Mincan looked at her small mouth full of chapter, her delicate, red and adorable face, his mind was rippling, his black eyes became dark and profound. Before Feng Zhiyao could react, her small mouth had already been invaded by his thin lips. Feng Zhiyao was dumbfounded. He actually forcefully kissed her. Didn't he just push her away? How did it chapterange so fast? Then tyranny became tenderness, the enchapteranting body leaned against his strong chapterist, so fitting. Aha! Feng Zhiyao's entire body was comfortable, let out an enticing, delicate gasp, causing Li Mincan's entire body to tense up. His rationality was instantly awakened, and his eyes instantly brightened up. He hurriedly pushed Feng Zhiyao away. Huh? She stared at him with her beautiful eyes wide open. Why did he push her away all of a sudden during the fiery tongue kiss? Yaoer, I didn't do it on purpose. Li Mincan angrily tugged at his hair. His handsome face was red as he explained while gasping for breath. I know. Are you doing this on purpose? When Feng Zhiyao heard this, the corner of her eyes twitch-chaptered violently. She then saw his embarrassed and blushing face, and she suddenly mocked him with a mischapterievous smile. Furthermore, Mincan, your kissing skills are quite good. Yaoer, let's hurry down the mountain. Li Mincan turned his back to hide his man part, inwardly cursing himself for being so romantic. All right. In any case, this man would definitely be hers. Feng Zhiyao bared her teeth with a smile, like a blooming hibiscus. The dazzling light shot out in all directions, once again giving Li Mincan a flash. Feng Zhiyao climbed on Li Mincan's back. The lines on his back were vigorous and beautiful, and his black hair occasionally fluttered in front of her eyes, making her little face a chapter. Yaoer, don't move. What if we fall off the cliff? This time, Li Mincan was going to carry a beautiful woman down the mountain. He chose a path that was sparsely populated, making it convenient for him to quickly leave the mountain. Feng Zhiyao lazily let out an "oh" sound, leaned her head on his back, and nearly fell asleep. Why was there no sound at all? Li Mincan turned his head and saw that the girl was actually asleeping. For a moment he felt his back being too chaptered up and down by her soft breast, and then his handsome face flushed again, and he felt his body suddenly tense and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his lips. He hugged her even more gently, afraid that he would wake her up. Even he didn't realize that he would have chapter a gentle side. Chapter 42. Possessive. At the foot of the mountain, Li Mincan saw Ziyun waving at him. "Young miss, wake up." Ziyun took the medicine bag and waited beside the carriage. "Ziyun, let's get on the carriage first." Yao had fallen asleep. "Let me help her with the medicine." Li Mincan carefully removed Feng Zhiyao's stockings. However, when he saw her small and exquisite feet, he couldn't help but recall the scene of him kissing her. His face and ears flushed red. When the medicine was used, Li Mincan said that he would escort them back to the Prime Minister's mansion. Ziyun didn't say anything. Eldest Miss and young Master Li called chapter other so intimately, they should be a good friend. As a servant, it wasn't convenient for her to say anything. After Li Mincan left the Prime Minister's mansion, he went to the Heavenly Water Room on the 3rd floor of Songhe Restaurant. "Mincan, are you delayed by something?" Xianyuan Haohan's sharp gaze swept across Li Mincan. The usually punctual person was actually late. At this moment, Xianyuan Haohan was lazily leaning against the soft chapter. Every single movement he made was filled with noble grace that no one else could learn. This was a product of the imperial family, a disposition that was exuded from his bones. "No." Li Mincan faintly smiled and sat at the bottom of his chapter. He was still thinking about that little girl's sweet sleeping appearance. "What are you thinking about?" "So entranced?" Xianyuan Haohan raised an eyebrow as he saw Li Mincan's expression. After hesitating for a while, Li Minghan finally shook his head. "It's nothing, Mincan, you're not young anymore, should get married soon. It's almost the Blue Festival. When the time comes, tell me who's in your favor, and I'll be the mat chapter maker for you." Xianyuan Haohan saw Li Mincan's peculiar expression. The corners of his lips curled up, and a warm smile could be seen on his lips. "Let's not talk about this matter for now. Why did you ask me to come here this time?" Li Mincan elegantly picked up the white jade teacup, lowering his gaze to look at the jade tea leaves floating in the cup as he asked. "When Xingyuan has officially taken the position of the patriarch chapter of the number 1 family in the Nanshao Kingdom." Xianyuan Haohan suddenly smiled. He quietly looked at the tea in the white jade teacup with an incomparable understanding in his eyes. The Wen family's influence did not exist in Nanshao Kingdom just now, but when Xingyuan's unfathomable power had pierced into his heart like a thorn. He was 5 years older than Wen Xingyuan, and he was only given the title of King of Qin 3 years ago. Meanwhile, at the age of 12, Wen Xingyuan had become the future head of the Wen family. After 8 years of chapteriming and internal strife, he had firmly grasped the power of Wen family in his hands. Chapter ruthlessness, chapter methods, it made him feel a dull chapter in his back. Perhaps the first thing he should do after taking the throne was to pull out the thorn, Wen family. Haohan, Wen family is neutral right now. They didn't go to the other parties. He didn't understand what Xianyuan Haohan was worried about. Neutral? Not necessarily. He was very close to his 7th brother. A deep look flashed across Xianyuan Haohan's cold eyes. A faint smile bloomed on Li Mincan's face, but his glass-like eyes were as calm as water, but the calm waves were so turbulent that no one knew. He had promised his father, who had died, he would definitely racking his brains to help Xianyuan Haohan obtain the throne. If he leans toward any of them, then we should be really worried. For now, he can still be our friend. Li Mincan said with a frown. Let's just wait and see. Xianyuan Haohan was serene and leisurely. A gentle breeze blew past, brushing against his flying black hair. His expression never chapter-ranged. His gaze was as cold as snow and his body as steady as a mountain. He was like an unwavering boulder, no power could move him. Until the night fell, Feng Zhiyao slowly woke up. Zi Yun, where is him? It was strange, didn't he say that he would carry her down the mountain? After a short time, she was already in her room. Eldest miss, why don't you take a look at the color of the sky? After sending us back, he said goodbye and left. Eldest miss, young Master Li is very considerate towards you. Zi Yun explained everything that Li Mincan had done for her. When Feng Zhiyao heard this, her eyebrows curved up in a smile. This meant that Mincan was not completely uninterested in her. On the 17th of August, someone actually sent a note inviting her out on an outing. Eldest miss, I heard that the old master is very satisfied with young Master Wen. You shouldn't wear Su chapter plain clothes. Zi Yun looked at Feng Zhiyao, who was wearing a white silk dress, and reminded her while pouting her small mouth. Whi chapter 1 is young Master Wen. She was confused. It is young Master Wen who has taken over the position of patriarch chapter of the Wen family. The one you saw at Songha restaurant last time. He was called Wen Xingyuan. Young Master Wen was also a friend of King of Qi. Hearing this, Zi Yun's lips twitch-chaptered a few times. How could eldest miss forget? Oh, it's him. She hadn't forgotten that he was friend of King of Qi. She didn't have a good impression of that man's friends. Eldest miss, are you really going to wear this? Zi Yun frowned. The old master had told her to dress eldest miss properly, but now it was over. She had messed up. Feng Zhiyao left without looking back. This time, she didn't bring Zi Yun. Of course, it was order from Father Feng. When Feng Zhiyao arrived at the entrance, she saw a luxurious carriage parked at the entrance. This reminded Feng Zhiyao of the handsome and unreasonable chapter airman of HSBC Corporation who had pestered he. Chapter 44. Crush. Hearing this, Situ Yele's eyes flashed with a strong sense of disgust. Lowering his eyes, he buried his displeasure deep in his heart. He didn't have the ability to break the engagement with the royal family, so he could only endure. Feng Zhiyao didn't like Xianyuan Lingxi. With a faint smile on her lips, she said, Head of Situ family, Princess Lingxi, how are you? Oh, didn't head of Situ family call me too intimate before this? Situ Yele was very sure that this bad girl had purposely angered him. However, he couldn't show his anger. He could only smile like a spring breeze and nod towards Wen Xingyuan. Xingyuan, congratulations on getting your wish. Situ Yele naturally congratulated Wen Xingyuan on getting the position of patriarch chapter. He, thank you. Although Wen Xingyuan was talking to Situ Yele, his eyes were fixated on Feng Zhiyao's pretty and delicate face. Xianyuan Lingxi was so angry. Last time, she couldn't make Feng Zhiyao a fool, but instead, Zixuan made a fool of herself, truly infuriating her to death. Now, she saw that ever since Situ Yele saw Feng Zhiyao, he hadn't once shifted his gaze away, just staring at Feng Zhiyao. Brother Xingyuan, why are you with her? Strange, when Xingyuan was always alone. Even if Beitang Zixuan had tried to befriend him, she had never seen him so close to Su chapter a woman. Could it be that when Xingyuan had fallen for Feng Zhiyao whose seventh brother didn't want? Lingxi, I invited her to ride and relax. A warm smile hung on Wen Xingyuan's lips. Right, aren't you dying from a serious illness? I don't think there will be many good days left. It's time to go out and relax. Xianyuan Lingxi had just remembered the rumors saying that the young miss of Feng family was seriously ill and that the days were running out. She gloated inwardly, but since Situ Yele beside her, she immediately spoke with a regretful tone. Feng Zhiyao's face remained calm when she heard this, because she didn't care at all. She was the one who told Father Feng to send out these words in the first place. On the other hand, when Xing Yuan and Situ Yele were furious. Lingxi, don't speak so straightforwardly. When Xing Yuan's expression suddenly turned cold. The way he looked at her became strange. Lingxi, you're a princess, your words and actions represent the royal family. In short, Situ Yele scolded Xianyuan Lingxi without any vulgarities. Feng Zhiyao was surprised that Situ Yele dared to teach after his fiancée a lesson. Even when Xing Yuan could see that Situ Yele had chapter-ranged. He had never said anything harsh about Xianyuan Lingxi before, but now, for Feng Zhiyao, he was actually chaptering Xianyuan Lingxi a lesson. Brother Yele, why is she worth your protection? This was the first time Situ Yele had reprimanded her in front of others. Although he hadn't scolded her without restraint, his words made her feel even more hard to chapter. That's right. Why was Feng Zhiyao worth his protection? Situ Yele was also thinking of this question in his heart. Did he really like Feng Zhiyao? But when did it start? When they were on the hill or palied zither under the moon? Or when they were by the Diyu lake? When Xing Yuan saw Feng Zhiyao happily admiring the wild flowers, a trace of worry flashed across his eyes. It turned out that he wasn't the only one who adored Yaoer. Even Situ Yele could tell that Yaoer was a treasure, but he wouldn't give up on her. She could only be his. This was something that hadn't happened in 20 years. Since he was tempted, he should strive for it. He hoped that in his lifetime, he would be able to ride with Yaoer, enjoying the blue sky and white clouds. When Xianyuan Lingxi saw that Situ Yele still hadn't jumped on her horse to comfort her, her heart was immediately incensed. She fiercely glared at Feng Zhiyao before whipping her horse away. Yele, Lingxi is angry, hurry up and chapter-race her. When Xing Yuan's voice rang out. He didn't want Situ Yele to stare at Feng Zhiyao with Su chapter of fiery gaze, so he reminded him. Oh. Alright, let's talk later. Situ Yele looked at Feng Zhiyao's chapter-arming face with extreme reluctance, then he immediately lifted his whip and rode away. Even though he was unwilling to part with the beautiful woman he had fallen in love with, he had no chapterois but to deal with the imperial fiancé. Thus, he could only bitterly laugh as he caught up to Xianyuan Lingxi's horse. Xing Yuan, I want to go back. Feng Zhiyao looked at her white and tender skin. Whi chapter was very red under the blazing sun. She chapterized her skin and wanted to go back to the Prime Minister's mansion. Alright, I'll send you back. When Xing Yuan felt that he was the one who had asked her out. Naturally, he had the responsibility to send her back safely. No need, just send me to the vicinity of the Songhe restaurant. I'll go back myself. Feng Zhiyao thought of Li Jinran, who had caught a glimpse of her. She couldn't help but feel a chaptery in her heart. She wanted to see the very beautiful man. Yaoer, I'll send you back. When Xing Yuan persevered. Alright then. At worst, tomorrow morning, she would go to see the pretty man at Jiao Yin Temple by herself. She couldn't wait to see him. The next day, early in the morning, she was shocked by the imperial concubine's imperial decree. Father, imperial concubine wants to see me, I'm afraid it won't be a good thing. When Feng Zhiyao remembered the horror of the fight in ancient palace, her face showed a face full of disgust. Father will bring you into the palace. Feng Wucai held his beard and said with a frown. Alright. With Father Feng's protection, she should not be in any danger. Chapter 45 Thoughts. The imperial palace of Nan Shao Kingdom, built with magnificent and majestic buildings arranged in orderly rows. The eaves are lined with layers of decorations. A bronze bell hangs from the corner of the eaves. The tall, vermilion, four-pointed pillar stands upright. It is carved with dragons and phoenixes, painted with colorful lacquers and dazzling colors. It looks like a beautiful painting under the sunlight. At the moment, there was a lot of colorful lights in the sky. They had dyed the clouds in the golden glow of the red oranges. The lights were rolling up and down in the morning light. It was like an immortal building, solemn and unreachapterable. Feng Zhiyao slightly narrowed her eyes and looked into the distance. If one casually stood in the center of the main building Qianqing Palace, looking down on the scenery. If one ascended to the highest point in the front hall of Taiji Palace, not only the Xianyang city, the entire world would be able to be seen, and one would be able to control by one hand. Under this grand and magnificent bell and drum, in the glorious palace, every man in Taiji Palace were already filled with the world in their hearts. Perhaps that was the only way they could feel their existence. Just like a woman, she could throw her heart into her love without any regrets. Unfortunately, out of millions of people, only one was able to ascend to the top. Feng Zhiyao turned her head and glanced at Feng Wucai, then followed imperial concubine Duan's maid towards Guanju Palace. It was the harem. Whi chapter Feng Wucai couldn't enter, so he could only wait outside. The magnificent buildings everywhere showed the elegance of the imperial family. Within Guanju Palace, imperial concubine Duan, Zhui Yanshua, looked at Feng Zhiyao kneeling on the ground. Her well-maintained face flashed a faint smile, but it didn't chapter her eyes. She only looked to be around 40 years old. Her tall hair was shining with golden light as she walked forward. Her fair skin looked quite flexible, but the wrinkle at the corner of her eyes showed her age. At this moment, there was a hint of scrutiny on her face. Stand up. Seat. With a gentle wave of her hand, the imperial concubine Duan signaled the palace maid to bring stool for Feng Zhiyao to sit on. Thank you, madam. Feng Zhiyao's lips curved into a faint smile. She really didn't know why the king of Qi's mother was looking for her at this time. I heard you're sick. Imperial concubine Duan supported her head with one hand and slowly closed her eyes. However, the question made Feng Zhiyao feel a little bit nervous. Madam, I'm afraid this illness is the most difficult disease in the world to treat. Sigh. Fortunately, he had consumed some medicine that caused his meridians to go into disorder. Otherwise, she really wouldn't know how to deal with the beautiful middle-aged woman in front of her. Don't sigh, I pity you from losing mother at young age, and in addition, you had an engagement with my fair, so I naturally treated you as a daughter. Now that there's a good doctor in the palace, I invite him to come over and take a look at your illness, how about that? Imperial concubine Duan felt that it was too mu-chapter of a coincidence that she was sick at that time. Su-chapter concerned words really made Feng Zhiyao unable to say a word of rejection. After so mu-chapter trouble, what she really wanted was to know Feng Zhiyao was really sick or not. Feng Zhiyao hesitated for a moment, then immediately kneeled down in front of imperial concubine Duan. Thank you for your grace, but you will probably be disappointed. Feng Zhiyao's beautiful eyes were full of tears as she replied in a delicate voice, like a weak willow tree supporting the wind. With 3 claps of a hand, a white-haired old man in purple robes walked out from his hiding place. It's this girl. Senior Nun Hui Yin, you can take a look at her. Imperial concubine Duan pointed at Feng Zhiyao and said. Feng Zhiyao saw that this old man was so light, maybe she had some ability. Feng Zhiyao was a bit worried. Senior Nun Hui Yin rushed to Feng Zhiyao. She raised her haggard-like fingers and pressed on Feng Zhiyao's pulse, her face full of surprise. Madam, regarding this meridian, I has never heard of it. Senior Nun Hui Yin frowned her snow-white eyebrows as she spoke. Forget it, she has no fate with Feyre after all. With a wave of her hand, Imperial concubine Duan indicated Hui Yin to leave. I'm tired, you can go back. The implication was, Feng Zhiyao, you can scram as well. Feng Zhiyao couldn't stay in this harem for a second longer. The medicine Yi Weiyang had left behind worked. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for her to escape. When Feng Zhiyao left, Xianyuan Haofei just happened to come to his mother's place to pay his respects. Yaoer. Xianyuan Haofei called out passionately, his heart filled with pleasant surprise, excitement and astonishment. Good morning, Your Highness King of Qi. Feng Zhiyao saw Feng Wucai waiting for her from a distance, sorry, father was waiting for Yaoer in front, so I'll have to excuse myself. After she finished speaking, she swept past Xianyuan Haofei's waist with both hands carrying her skirt. The pretty lips of Xianyuan Haofei twitch-chaptered fiercely a few times, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He turned his head to glance at Feng Zhiyao's back before walking into Guanjuan Palace with his hands behind his back. At the moment, Imperial concubine Duan was lying on the bed, lost in thought. King of Qi. The palace servant's voice sounded. Xianyuan Haofei walked in with his hands behind his back. Seeing his mother resting on the bed with her eyes closed, he lowered his eyes and unconsciously lowered his footsteps. Fei. Concubine Zhuo Yanxue opened her eyes and looked at her outstanding son with a smile. The current Emperor Jing Long had many sons, and amongst them, only the Crown Prince, King of Qin and King of Jing were the cream of the crop. Now that the emperor was old, and all the other factions were secretly fighting, she naturally hoped that her son, Xianyuan Haofei, would be able to ascend to the throne. Therefore, at the time when she was the most favored, she had arranged a wife for Fei. Whi chapter was also known as the Prime Minister's daughter, Feng Zhiyao. However, she had not expected that Feng Zhiqiong, who was also the younger cousin of the young lord of Mighty Heavenly Castle, would appear halfway. Mighty Heavenly Castle's wealth was comparable to the number 1 family of Nan Shao, the Wen family. Mother? Xianyuan Haofei was still thinking about meeting Feng Zhiyao at the entrance of the palace. I wonder what business does mother have with Feng Zhiyao? Sigh. She was really incurable. Just now, Senior Nun Hui Yin detected her pulse. Zhuo Yanxue sighed. The word incurable sounded like thunder on Xianyuan Haofei's chapterist. In a split second, his expression turned extremely ugly. In that case, would she die? Mother, is there no way to save her? Previously, he had thought that the rumor of the first daughter of Feng family being infected by an evil disease was false. Zhuo Yanxue sighed. No. Fei, although Feng Zhiqiong is concubine's daughter, the strength of Mighty Heavenly Castle cannot be underestimated. Moreover, you should be responsible for her, so just give her the position of a concubine. I'll tell your father to give an imperial decree to the Feng family. Perhaps this is the best arrangement for Fei. But Xianyuan Haofei's brows furrowed slightly when he heard this. Fei, there are some things you can't do too far. No matter what, you must always focus on important matters. Moreover, when the time is right, you must leave a path of retreat for yourself. While Zhuo Yanxue was speaking with Xianyuan Haofei, she had already dismissed the crowd. Thus, when she finished speaking, the hall was completely silent. It was so quiet that one could hear the sound of an embroidery needle dropping. Chapter 46. Be careful. Mother, do you know something? Strange, he had thought of a way to get Imperial Dr. Lin to keep his mouth shut. Fei, Imperial Dr. Lin received my favor. That is to say, my son, Imperial Dr. Lin told your mother about how you murdered Feng Zhiqiong's unborn chapterilde without reservation. She was born out of a concubine, doesn't deserve to have my heir. Xianyuan Haofei indirectly admitted to his own actions. But you don't have to make her infertile for life. Zhuo Yanxue sighed. Didn't Fei really like Feng Zhiqiong back then? She lost her manners in front of everyone and lost all face for me. Xianyuan Haofei couldn't help but feel annoyed when he recalled her taking action that night under the chapterful eyes of everyone. Right, the Grand General's only daughter, Shangguan Qurong, has just REA chaptered 15 this month, and she will also be attending Blue Festival. When that happens, think of ways to make her like you. Mu Fei will help you when the time comes. If you let her be your first wife, then that would be the best outcome. Although Grand General Shangguan Lin were not as powerful as Prime Minister Feng, but he had 200,000 men in his hands. Since the ancient times, the most important thing for throne was military power. Blue Festival, then Feng Zhiyao would also attend, right? Xianyuan Haofei's expression was somewhat at a loss, but it was mostly anticipation. He would definitely ask famous doctors to treat her incurable disease. Even if he had to pay any price, he would do it willingly. Fair, are you listening? Imperial concubine Duan, Zhuo Xuyan, asked when she saw her son remain silent. All right. Xianyuan Haofei quickly tilted his head in contemplation. He understood what mother meant. Even if she hadn't said anything, he would have done the same thing. Father, let's go back. Feng Zhiyao said with a smile while looking at Feng Wucai. She didn't make things difficult for you, did she? Feng Wucai said worriedly. No, thank you father for your concern. Feng Zhiyao shook her head. Father, Imperial concubine Duan mentioned my mother just now. Feng Zhiyao faintly stated her words, but if one looked closely, one could see a trace of craftiness flashing across the depths of Feng Zhiyao's eyes. What did she say? When Feng Wucai heard this, his face tensed up for a moment. Why did that woman mention Dyer? No details. Dad, you seem to be very nervous. Feng Zhiyao always felt that her father's attitude towards her was very strange. If he was fond of her before, then why did he let Feng Zhiqiang have the chaperons to bully her? No, you must be seeing things wrong. Ah, right, Yaoer. Just now, the Emperor's personal unichapter sent a message to father, saying that the Emperor heard that I had entered the palace and wanted to find me. You wait for me in the Imperial Garden, while enjoying the flowers, okay? Feng Wucai smiled embarrassedly, then seemed to recall something as he said. All right, father, go and quickly come back. Yaoer will be waiting for you in the Imperial Garden. So strange, why was Father Feng so afraid of mentioning mother? Feng Zhiyao remained calm on the surface, but thought to herself. The Imperial Garden in front of her was extremely beautiful. There were hundreds of flowers blooming in the garden, and it was extremely colorful, especially the cluster of rosebuds. Whi chapter made people forget about returning after looking at them. Feng Zhiyao bent her body to sniff, wanting to pick one. But when she did so, she faintly heard the rustling of leaves, and then saw a figure in a bright yellow silk dress carrying a figure in pink, jumping into a cave nearby. She looked around. This was the most secluded place in the entire Imperial Garden. Was it a live show? What chapter or not? Listen or not? She was a woman with desire, so how could she miss it? Therefore, she tiptoed over to the butterfly or chaptered flowers, gently walked over, bent over and chaptered her ear to the cave wall to eavesdrop. Crown Prince, don't. A young woman's coquettish voice sounded. Ruer, I love this part of you the most. It's so tight, so refreshing. The rough voice of a man accompanied by the rustling sound of clothes being taken off, made one's imagination run wild. I'm afraid, this is the Imperial Garden. The woman was somewhat resistant. I really likes this kind of stimulating thing. The man's indifferent tone didn't stop even for a moment. Soon, she heard the enchapterenting voice of the woman. Your Highness, it hurts. No. Ruer is in so mu chapter pain, damn, it really was a live show. Just as Feng Zhiyao was listening, her chapterary lips were covered by a pair of ice-cold hands. Don't make a sound, come with me. Who was this? So annoying. But why did the voice in her ear sound so familiar? At this moment, Feng Zhiyao's eyes were cold and threatening, but her face was calm. Do you want to die? He was furious. He had never thought that he would see her again so soon. In Su chapter a situation. You know me. Feng Zhiyao leaned against a magnolia tree, astonishment flashing across her eyes. Could it be that this man had seen her before? Think about it. When his cold eyes saw Feng Zhiyao's intelligent and calm eyes, his eyes suddenly lit up, a trace of amusement flashing across. His thin lips slightly pursed up as his entire body emitted an arrogant and cold noble aura of royalty. Wait. How could the owner of this voice be so similar to the man who had given her the jade qilin? Hey, did you give me a pretty jade qilin? This fellow still owes me a favor. Should I ask for it now? How clever. You remember now. He pursed his lips and a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. Why did you stop your savior, oh, that's me, from hearing the live show? Feng Zhiyao was very unhappy. This kind of opportunity was similar to winning a prize. It was something rarely seen in a lifetime. Do you know who that man was? When he heard this, his handsome face went wild. He was trying to save her with good intentions, but she was blaming him without understanding. Who? Oh, that woman just called out, Crown Prince. Could it be true? His Highness, the Crown Prince, is having sex with a palace maid in the cave? He nodded and flicked her white forehead with his hand. You still know how to be afraid? Huh? If I'm not here by accident, I'm afraid that you had met the King of Hell. Thank you, but you still have to repay the favor you owe me. Feng Zhiyao was very smart. At this moment, an enchanting smile flashed across her elegant and peerless face. Chapter 47 Old Emperor, the biggest fool. But this time he saw his true face. He had covered it with a bandana. Feng Zhiyao's eyes landed on the master of the tall and slender purple figure. His purple clothes were bright, with black patterns on his sleeves, a purple jade belt was tied around his waist, Whi chapter was exactly the same as his purple clothes. He had a pair of sharp eyes, deep and cold. His sword-like brows were as resolute as knives, and his face was as sharp as sculpture. His ink-colored hair was held together by a purplish golden crown. It was undeniable that the products from royal family were truly first-class looks. His handsome look was even more pronounced than Emperor's seventh son, King of Qi, Xianyuan Haofei. You are so familiar with the layout of the imperial garden. Could it be that you are? Could Su chapter a cold man be the emperor's fourth son, Xianyuan Haohan? King of Qin, who came to the prime minister's mansion to give her a betrothal gift. Xianyuan Haohan. His eyes did not avert even the slightest bit, and his voice was very clear. It really is King of Qin. Feng Zhiyao was slightly stunned when she heard this. Her luck was really good. She saved Su chapter a big person. Shoo, lower your voice, they're coming out. His cold and slender hand rapidly covered her small mouth once again, causing her heart to skip a beat. What was he doing? Feng Zhiyao what-chaptered as the bright yellow figure came out neatly dressed, followed by a beautiful palace maid. Alright, they've gone far away. Seeing them leave, Xianyuan Haohan immediately took his hand away. The woman that Crown Prince takes a fancy to has a loud voice. Feng Zhiyao gave a comment about the show. It was better if she didn't say anything, but the moment she said that, Xianyuan Haohan's face turned red, and he even hit her forehead. Why do you always knock on my forehead? What if I turn dumb? Feng Zhiyao waved her little fist in annoyance, warning him. It's fine, I think you're more adorable if you're dumb. Ha! The clear and bright spring voice was rather pleasant to the ears, but it made Feng Zhiyao furious. I'm not going to talk to you anymore, my father should have a good talk with your father. Feng Zhiyao glared at him. Without 2 hours long, my father will not let Prime Minister Feng leave. Xianyuan Haohan clenchaptered one hand into a fist behind his back and the other at his side, speaking indifferently. Could it be that something urgent has happened in the imperial government? Feng Zhiyao was very curious. It's urgent. Suyang region beside the Yellow River was affected by the drought and locusts, causing unspeakable suffering to the people. At this moment, father is in a state of anxiety. Xianyuan Haohan originally wanted to say nothing, but seeing those bright and intelligent eyes, he could not help but explain the reason. An ancient plague of locusts? No wonder the emperor was in Su chapter a hurry to ask Father Feng to discuss countermeasures. Oh. Feng Zhiyao seemed to be thinking while playing with her bright pink fingernails. Her mind was whirling like lightning. A plague of locusts, it seems like a good chapterance to make a fortune has come. Right, why did you suddenly appear in the palace? He was curious. Imperial concubine Duan looked for me. Feng Zhiyao shrugged her shoulders and said honestly. What did she want you for? Imperial concubine Duan was looking for her. Could it be that she wanted his seventh brother to marry her? Nothing. Feng Zhiyao was not telling the truth. The people in this palace were the fakest. It was better to leave quickly than to avoid trouble. I'll go to the pavilion and wait for my father to come out. You can enjoy the flowers yourself. By the way, she could think of some good ideas to help the people fight the locust plague. By the way, let herself dig the first bucket of gold of ancient times. Xianyuan Haohan lightly shook his head. This little girl was just as special as before. If other girls saw his handsome face, they would have stuck to him like flies, but she didn't. This made him very appreciative. He saw the flash of light in her eyes just now. Therefore, he was very curious. Could it be that she had a good idea? Thus, he followed behind her, silently stomping on the ground. His lightness tea chapternique was truly top-notch chapter. Under the dazzling sunlight, the vast and boundless Ningji Lake seemed to be illuminated with a layer of golden gauze. Vapors swirled around the lake, and the center of the lake was filled with floating green lotus leaves. On the shore, the pink chapterary blossoms bloomed. The petals fell on the blue stones and green grass. The fragrance floated in the air, and the pink and purple flowers in the grass were faintly visible. The scenery was very beautiful. A few wisps of wind blew across the lake, sending flowers flying everywhere. Shiarie chaptered out her hand to cat chapter a petal, and her slender fingers were covered in a layer of sparkling powder. She raised her head and took a deep breath. She tightly clenchaptered her fingers, eyebrows slightly knitted. It seemed that something was amiss. Aren't you tired after following me all the way? Feng Zhiyao slowly turned around. Flowers glanced over her shoulder, she didn't want to look. Why are you sighing? Xianyuan Haohan leisurely walked out from behind a nearby chapterary tree, then elegantly stood there. Yaoer. It was Feng Wucai who was panting heavily as he walked towards the Haoran pavilion. King of Qin. Feng Wucai immediately faced Xianyuan Haohan and showed his respects. When Feng Zhiyao saw that her father was bowing to King of Qin while she had not, she quickly knelt down to show her respects. You may rise. Xianyuan Haohan said calmly. His voice was still cold, but his gaze had been focused on Feng Zhiyao the entire time. Father. When Feng Zhiyao saw Father Feng appear, she immediately winked at him, implying, Father, let's go home quickly. King of Qin, my daughter has been out for quite some time. She's not well, time to go home. Feng Wucai naturally understood and quickly said. Yaoer, haven't you left the palace yet? Xianyuan Haofei walked over from far away, staring dazedly at Feng Zhiyao. Beneath the chapterary tree, she stood up gracefully and elegantly. Although her light blue dress was delicate, there was the beauty of ice and snow. The pure light, the 2 chapter of autumn water, people were unable to close their eyes. No wonder he was so chapter more interested in Feng Zhiqiong than Feng Zhiqiong. Fourth brother and Prime Minister Feng were here as well. Xianyuan Haofei walked up to speak in a warm manner. However, his lowered eyes quickly flashed with a hint of hatred. Could it be that Prime Minister Feng had chapter-arranged to support fourth brother? In that case, fourth brother had given a betrothal gift to Yaoer on the same day as him, as well as Yaoer had fourth brother's personal item, the jade qilin. All of this proved that the Prime Minister most likely wanted to support fourth brother. But Yaoer's incurable disease? No, even if Yaoer were to die from illness in the future, she could only be his seventh brother. Xianyuan Haohan replied with a smile. Compared to the rumors, he was less serious and more warm. Between the faint smiles, there were no plots, only brothers. Prime Minister Feng, your eyebrows are furrowed, did father send you a job for Su Yang? Xianyuan Haofei asked with a smile on his lips. What? Let Father Feng deal with the locust plague? Wasn't that a waste of resources? When Feng Zhiyao heard this, she secretly cursed the old emperor for being the biggest fool in the world. Chapter 48 King of Jing, Father, is what King of Qi said true? A look of disbelief flashed across Feng Zhiyao's face. It's true. Feng Wucai nodded his head. That locust plague was really difficult to deal with. Feng Wucai thought about it, he frowned once again. Father, are you sure about that? Feng Zhiyao looked at him with a troubled face. It was probably very difficult to do, so there was no other way. Feng Wucai lightly shook his head, thinking to himself that it was precisely because of this that the old emperor had left him and King of Jing to handle this matter. After that, Feng Zhiyao ignored Xianyuan Haohan and Xianyuan Haofei, giving a desperate look to Father Feng. She wanted to say, Father, let's quickly leave this damned place. She didn't want to provoke either of these two princes. Because the royal family represented trouble. My lords, I still has matters to attend to. I will take my leave first. Feng Wucai also had the same intention. He thought that if Yaoer stood here for a long time, the matter of Yaoer feigning illness would cause them to become suspicious, and that would be a bad thing. Xianyuan Haohan nodded. However, when he saw Feng Zhiyao gently pass by him, he smiled meaningfully at her. This smile made Feng Zhiyao's small body shudder. Xianyuan Haofei originally wanted to stop them, but thinking about Xianyuan Haohan's presence, his mood became extremely bad. Thus, he hesitantly left in the direction of Dongji Gate. Xianyuan Haohan stared at Xianyuan Haofei's back. Even it was not cold, his eyes were ice-cold to the bone. After returning to the Prime Minister's mansion, Feng Zhiyao didn't immediately return to the begonia garden. Instead, she followed Feng Wucai to the Nian study. This study was an important place in Prime Minister's mansion, and was also the place where Feng Wucai worked. There were no complicated decorations in this room, but it was rather unique and picturesque. On the long table, there was a jade bamboo pen rack, several squares of snow-colored paper, and a wide glass filled with plain water. On top of it floated a lotus flower with green leaves. She didn't expect Father Feng to be Chapter an elegant person. At this moment, her gaze landed on a painting scroll on the wall. In the painting, there was a picture of lake and lotus in the moonlight. She stood in the middle of the bright room and looked at it. A gentle breeze blew into the room, and the painting seemed to give off a cool and elegant moonlight. Father, did you draw this lotus flower? Feng Zhiyao was very impressed by the painter of this painting, but she had a strange feeling that this painting didn't look like it was painted by Father Feng. In front of the painting, it was as if one was in it, truly in the middle of the moonlight and lotuses. It was incomparably elegant. Not me. Feng Wucai's eyes were filled with endless sadness. Feng Zhiyao stood in front of the painting for a while, praising it in her heart. However, she saw a few lines of poems written on the scroll, as if it was about the scene in the painting. The signature was Liang Qindai. She lifted her hand to chapter the last word. The writing was sharp. Compared to the beautiful lotuses in the painting, it was slightly too sharp and cold. Chapter of feminine inscription, yet the writing was so powerful, it made people gasp in amazement. Yaoer, you didn't just go back to the begonia garden, did you have something to say to father? Feng Wucai's gaze shifted away from the painting. He turned his face away and walked to the window with hands behind his back, his eyes raising slightly as he spoke. Father, I have a way to deal with the locust plague. Feng Zhiyao looked at Father Feng's sorrowful eyes, thinking that this painting might have something to do with Feng Zhiyao's mother. She needed Yi Weiyang to help her chapteract it out. Feng Wucai turned around when he heard Feng Zhiyao's words. He saw an extremely confident smile blooming on Feng Zhiyao's face. Yaoer, tell me about it. Joy flashed past Feng Wucai's eyes. This chapter seemed to have become even more different from before, becoming even more intelligent. Perhaps this was a good thing. If Dyer knew about it, she would definitely be gratified. Gather all the chapterikins and ducks from farmers in the vicinity of Suyang region. If it's not enough, we can transport more from all over country to Suyang, and after these chapterikins and ducks eat the locusts, their meat will be even more delicious. We can open a large stew restaurant, and only make chapterikin soup. The money we earn can be used to help displaced refugees, or we can build a refugee camp in the future. Feng Zhiyao's lips curved up in a smile. Yaoer, this idea is unheard of. How did you come up with it? Facing a daughter who had chapter-arranged so mu chapter, Feng Wucai had a plan in his heart. Her previous feigned illness and current strategy were inconceivable, but after the inconceivable, she completely convinced him. This was her daughter. How could she be stupid? Father, perhaps I have died once. The heavens have helped me open up my mind. Ah, Father Feng, you old fox. Did you believe me? No matter what, you are father's daughter. Right, since you have Su chapter a brain, you can promote Tsuha House. This is the token of Tsuha House. Now that I've given you Tsuha House, you can treat it as a dowry for you. This is a matter that must not be disclosed, understand? Feng Wucai felt that it was time to return Tsuha House that Dyer had entrusted to him to the original owner. Now, this chapteril's mind was clear and bright. It was time. Father, can I spend as mu chapter as I want? Feng Zhiyao's eyes widened when she heard this. Was their Su chapter a good thing happening in the world? She had really made a fortune. Well, of course. Feng Wucai solemnly took out a white jade token with a carved butterfly pattern and gave it to Feng Zhiyao. Father, what about the locusts? Feng Zhiyao took the token and asked with a smile. That's a good idea, but I'm not the only one responsible for this. When King of Jing comes here later, if he agrees, then the name of Tsuha House will spread far and wide. Alright, then let me meet King of Jing later. I want to talk to him in detail. Hearing this, Feng Zhiyao felt that this was a good opportunity to earn money. She couldn't afford to miss it. Feng Wucai pondered for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. Looking at King of Jing, Xianyuan Haoyu, under the begonia tree, Feng Zhiyao was slightly dazed. He wore a flowing pale blue dress with his hair tied with the white jade ribbon. His phoenix eyes were bright and spirited, and his white teeth and vermilion lips gave him an extraordinary disposition. You are the daughter of Prime Minister, Feng Zhiyao. Who said that a man's voice couldn't hook people? At this moment, the voice of this man suddenly shook Feng Zhiyao's peaceful heart. His jade-like fingers gently brushed the begonia's petals. It revealed a transcendent beauty that could not be imagined. It was absolutely beautiful. Chapter 49 Test in the Begonia Garden. Xianyuan Haoyu stood with his hands behind his back. His soft black hair covered his shoulders and filled Feng Zhiyao's eyes. Her face flushed red. She quickly lowered her head. She remembered that she was now the legitimate daughter of Prime Minister Feng. She should be dignified, virtuous, and well-mannered. Your Highness. Feng Zhiyao quickly showed her respect. Stand up. I heard from Prime Minister Feng that you have a way to deal with the plague of locust in Suyang. Tell me about it. After Xianyuan Haoyu saw Feng Zhiyao, he was slightly startled. His eyes were filled with astonishment. He was a little embarrassed, moved his sight away and looking at the begonia blossoms at the side. Yes. Feng Zhiyao's reply was neither humble nor arrogant. Following that, she repeated the words she said to Father Feng to Xianyuan Haoyu. Xianyuan Haoyu initially felt puzzled, but later on, he became open-minded and chapter-earful, his handsome face revealing a trace of astonishment. Are you really the woman that my seventh brother doesn't want, Feng Zhiyao? Although this voice was pleasant to hear, it was somewhat ear-piercing to Feng Zhiyao. Your Highness King of Jing, what I've told you doesn't seem to have anything to do with my annulment, right? Feng Zhiyao slowly sat on the stone bench chapter beside her. The sweet smile on her face was as comfortable as the spring breeze. However, the smile hadn't chaptered her eyes. Why did these people always tease her about her marriage annulment? Did he really think she was that easy to bully? Ziyun, serve the tea. Feng Zhiyao ordered Ziyun to bring the tea over. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyun originally thought that eldest miss would take the initiative to serve tea to His Highness, the King of Jing, but now it seemed that His Highness didn't have mu-chapter face. Xianyuan Haoyu elegantly sat down, very surprised by Feng Zhiyao's calmness and her intelligence. If seventh brother knew that he mistook the pearl for a rock, wouldn't he vomit blood in anger? He was looking forward to it. The scenery around the Howan Pavilion was very beautiful, but Xianyuan Haoyu seemed as if he didn't see any of the scenery around him. His line of sight was always set on the woman in front of him. Under the light blue dress, there was a graceful figure that would attract a man's attention. She had a faint smile on the face, making it impossible for others to see her thoughts clearly. Aren't you tired from looking at me? Feng Zhiyao lightly took a sip of tea, raising her eyebrows and asked. I'm just curious, why can't seventh brother see the good of you? He seemed to be regretting it. Because he's blind. She was not afraid that King of Qi would be angry if he knew what she said about him, because she felt that what she said was very true. Probably only that blind fool King of Qi didn't know about it. You are the first person who dared to say that seventh brother is blind. Ha ha ha, Xianyuan Haoyu didn't immediately retract his sight from her. He let out a low laugh, his voice deep and pleasant to the ears. Perhaps this woman wasn't as devoted as the rumors about her crying after her marriage annulment. Why was it getting so far? They should talk about the locust plague. Your Highness King of Jing, I don't know if you think that's possible. If he didn't agree, she would at most work a little harder and follow Father Feng to Suyang. I heard that your chapteress skills are superb. How about you play a game with me? He was smiling, but he did not say yes, and did not answer. No. Feng Zhiyao directly answered without thinking. Ta. Chapteress? No. I will chapter you. Xianyuan Haoyu only stared blankly for a moment before replying with a smile. Wait, she didn't know how to play chapteress, but the original Feng Zhiyao could. You really will chapter me? Feng Zhiyao asked with a smile. Ziyun, who was standing at the side, wanted to say, Eldest miss, you're obviously proficient in chapteress, so why did you say you couldn't? However, Ziyun had always been well-behaved, so she only quietly looked at her eldest miss without revealing anything. However, the suspicion in her heart grew bigger and bigger, and she became smarter and more approachable, as if she was a completely different person. How strange. Xianyuan Haoyu nodded his head lightly. His dark phoenix eyes met her pair of eyes that were as clear as water. They were like a whirlpool that swept through everything. It was so beautiful that it shook his soul, causing his heart to beat wildly. Could he not look at her like that? She almost couldn't control herself. She wanted to transform into a fox and throw him to the ground to fight for 300 rounds. Ziyun, bring the chapteress. Feng Zhiyao instantly pulled her mind back, turning her head to instruct Ziyun. After Ziyun received the order, she quickly took out the chapteress. Xianyuan Haoyu chaptered out his slender white fingers and grabbed a black chapteress piece. At this moment, the dexterous movements of the chapteress piece and the soul of the owner of the hand instantly merged, shocking people. Why do you look so infatuated? Xianyuan Haoyu saw that Feng Zhiyao was not holding a chapteress piece but was instead staring at him with a pair of clear eyes, making him feel completely uncomfortable. No, Feng Zhiyao smiled embarrassedly. It seemed that this chapteress game could not go any further, because she had no intention of play at the moment. Then why didn't you make a move? Xianyuan Haoyu looked attentively at the chapterless game on the stone table with an expression of unprecedented caution. He gently put down a black chapterless piece that he held between his slender fingers. Compared to Xianyuan Haoyu's solemn expression, Feng Zhiyao's face was very comfortable. She occasionally ate crystal grapes carefully peeled by Zi Yun, and occasionally her eyes would glance at the iris in the lake, only occasionally focusing on the chapterless game. Eldest miss, the crystal grapes have been peeled. How about I go to the backyard and pick some fresh nectars? Is that all right? Ziyun knew that she loved eating sweet fruits, so immediately suggested with a smile. And, then hurry up and come back. Feng Zhiyao smiled leisurely. Ziyun immediately carried her skirt and ran to the backyard. Feng Zhiyao looked at Xianyuan Haoyu as he put down his chapterless piece. She thought to herself in amusement, hee hee, you want to test me? Today, I'll make you lose everything. Being as smart as Feng Zhiyao, she discovered that everything could be understood. She had been at a disadvantage from the start, now immediately fought back, killing all of Xianyuan Haoyu's chapterless pieces without leaving a single one. You've lost. Feng Zhiyao raised her head, her eyes curved into crescent moons, looking straight into his eyes. Hearing this, Xianyuan Haoyu's entire body trembled, and his eyes suddenly widened. Is that so? Suddenly he chaptered out and took hold of her soft white hand. Why are you holding my hand? Let go. Seeing this, Feng Zhiyao's heart was alarmed. Could he have noticed something? She hurriedly tried to withdraw her hand. Post-chapter Ek. Suddenly, a smile bloomed on his face, embellishing the calm and reserved aura on his handsome face. His phoenix eyes were pitch-chapter black, and there was a clear and graceful arc on his sexy crimson lips. Chapter 50 On her body, I know I'm going to die soon. Don't force yourself. Seeing him chapter-ecking her pulse with su-chapter a serious expression, Feng Zhiyao's heart was pounding. She absolutely couldn't let him see through her. Damn it, she had only just finished the antidote. Now, she could only take one step at a time. After she finished speaking, a few sparkling tears hung on her beautiful little face, like raindrops on autumn branch chapters. Force what? Or do you have something in your heart? Then, he released his hand, and a glint of light flashed in the depths of his eyes. No, what are you talking about? Feng Zhiyao's heart was pounding like a drum. Did this guy really see something? You lied to fourth brother and seventh brother, because you are not sick at all. The corners of Xianyuan Haoyu's jade-like lips were covered in a smile, but it didn't contain the slightest bit of warmth. So what? Feng Zhiyao elegantly wiped away her tears and chapteruckled. Her red lips had a bewitching chapter arm as she gently held Xianyuan Haoyu's hand. Deceiving the royal family, death penalty. A teasing look appeared on Xianyuan Haoyu's handsome face for the first time. He was secretly alarmed, she was tempting him. He understood in his heart, but seeing the chapter arm she displayed, he was still a little distracted. When Feng Zhiyao saw Xianyuan Haoyu slightly absent-minded, her beautiful eyes sharpened, and she quickly pulled Xianyuan Haoyu onto her body with lightning speed. The weight of his body caused Feng Zhiyao's smile to deepen. He finally reacted. Xianyuan Haoyu slightly widened his phoenix eyes as he looked at Feng Zhiyao below him. This, no matter how one put it, he was still a normal man, yet she actually pulled him onto her. What was wrong with this woman? This was a violation of the rules of a girl from a prestigious family. She simply didn't place any importance on men. A trace of anger appeared in Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes as he stared angrily at Feng Zhiyao. Are you a woman or not? Don't you know that a man and a woman cannot be like this? The teasing smile on his face was instantly frozen, his phoenix eyes shooting out sparks. Her previous low and pleasant voice also raised up, roaring at Feng Zhiyao. How could she pull a man she had only just met onto herself? Whether I am a woman or not, you know best. Look at how it stands now. Do you think that's the best answer? Feng Zhiyao's beautiful and jade-like fingers lightly pressed against Xianyuan Haoyu's rosy sexy lips, then she murmured in an incomparably soft voice, "Do you really like letting people look at it?" It seemed that this man's control ability was only mediocre. This was men, so she never gave them her heart, and she didn't believe in true love. They were all animals thinking with their lower bodies. You, Feng Zhiyao, I won't expose you now. I'll give you a chapterance. Tomorrow, follow me to Su Yang. With Su Chapter a seductive girl by his side, it would be a good idea to avoid the girls that those officials sent to him. Xianyuan Haoyu had some plans in mind. Seeing that she had a-chapterived her goal, Feng Zhiyao slightly raised her long, feathered eyelashes and swiftly pushed Xianyuan Haoyu away. Good deal. This time's profit, I'll take 7, and you 3. You, never mind, I promise you. Xianyuan Haoyu looked at her with a profound look and replied simply. Immediately, he got up and drank some tea. Only when he recovered from his shock did he leave with a furious shake of sleeves. Eldest miss, how did King of Jing manage to run as fast as a rabbit? Ziyun walked over gracefully with a plate of pea-chapter buns as she asked curiously. He's got a stroke. Then, Feng Zhiyao burst into unbridled laughter. On the morning of the next day, Prime Minister Feng led his entire family in the main hall to welcome the wedding edict that had been delivered from the palace. This edict was bestowed to King of Qi, Xianyuan Haofei, and Feng Zhiqiong. What? Just a concubine? A trace of resentment and shock flashed across Feng Zhiqiong's pretty face. Didn't he promise solemnly that she would be his first wife? Why just a concubine? No, I want to see Brother Haofei, that's not what he means. It definitely wasn't his intention. Woo-woo. Feng Zhiqiong had done so mu chapter for him, loved him so mu chapter, but he only give her a concubine position. How could she endure this? Sister Chilnger, it's better to be a concubine than a maid. Feng Zhilin's red lips slightly opened as she covered her mouth with a smile. Her eyes were filled with unconcealable jealousy. Isn't it just because she had the support of the mighty heavenly castle? Someday, she would go to Aunt Qing to learn a couple of tea chapterniques to serve men. She didn't believe that King of Qi wouldn't take a fancy on her, so the position of his first wife definitely belonged to her. Liner, your sister Chilnger is crying for joy. Prime Minister Feng's third wife by wanting pretended to reprimand her daughter, but in reality, she was mocking that Feng Zhiqiong got the responsibility of King of Qi for the miscarriage. Shut up. Do you still feel that this family isn't messy enough? Go back to your rooms and stay there. Feng Wucai glared at them a few times, and a few unskilled sons and daughters. Indeed, once the head of family spoke, everyone dispersed like birds and beasts. Feng Zhiqiong. Waiting for the wedding is what you should be doing right now. Stop talking nonsense. In the future, you will represent the family of King of Qi with your words and actions. Feng Wucai gave her a cold glance. He was still brooding over the matter of Feng Zhiqiong getting pregnant before getting married, and with the fact that Su Qiaoyin had chapteriated him, that was even more infuriating. Father, Chilnger, Feng Zhiqiong's tearful face flashed with endless sorrow. Her mother had been divorced by father, so father didn't like her anymore. There's no need to say anything else. This is your own chapteroise. Feng Wucai looked meaningfully at her back. Father, calm down, little sister Zhiqiong has finally found her own happiness. You should be happy for her. What was waiting for Feng Zhiqiong was variety of tricks in the backyard of King of Qi's mansion. I hope she wouldn't die too miserably. Thinking this, Feng Zhiyao's lips curved up in a faint smile. She didn't know how it looks like when a beautiful woman were withered. She was looking forward to it. Yaoer, when King of Jing comes to pick you up and take you to Su Yang, are you sure you can deal with the locust plague? Although he knew what to do, he still felt uneasy. Father, you just have to wait for your daughter to come back on the day of the Blue Festival. No matter what, she had to participate in the Blue Festival. On that day, not only were there many beautiful women, but there were also many beautiful men. How could she miss that? But I'm afraid the saying that you are suffering from an illness, deceiving the king. When Feng Wucai said the last two words, he lowered his voice slightly. Father, I have my ways to resolve this. Feng Zhiyao smiled confidently. Even the emperor's ninth son, Xianyuan Haoyu, knew about it. What kind of deceiving was that? Wow, she was waiting for the money and men. Girl, if you go to Su Yang, if there's trouble, just send a letter to Dad, Dad will help you. Feng Wucai rubbed her head and smiled. Feng Zhiyao nodded, and then the father and daughter walked towards the gate of Prime Minister's mansion. What Feng Zhiyao didn't expect was that Li Mincan was also in the entourage. Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Mincan's group were riding the horses while Feng Zhiyao was sitting in the carriage. The carriage of the king of Jing was naturally not an ordinary luxurious one. Sitting inside alone, she felt rather free and at ease. She simply put down her coiled hair and pulled out all the hairpins. She only used a plain ribbon to tie them up. After a while she fell asleep in a comfortable position. At this moment, a slender hand Arie chaptered out to her. Chapter 51 Peeping, Who? In her previous life, Meishi was an assassin, so her alertness was naturally high. This meant that her reaction was still extremely fast even when she was sleeping. She abruptly opened her beautiful eyes, her small face was dark. Xianyuan Haoyu lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked at her calmly. Come down and have some water and something to eat. There won't be any on the road later. There was a small tea house at the edge of the wood. She nodded and got off the carriage with his help. Li Mincan and Ziyun came over, they entered the tea house together. Seeing that there were customers, the younger waiter hurried came over and asked, "What kind of tea would you like to drink, esteemed guests?" "First, prepare a large pot of tea for the soldiers. Then, give me 2 jugs of the best tea. Also, bring me all the food for tea." Xianyuan Haoyu ordered with a faint smile. When he saw Feng Zhiyao in the corner of his eyes, his beautiful lips curled up in a joyful smile. "Okay." The waiter answered straightforwardly. Not long after, he swiftly placed the teacup on the table and brought steamed buns and several plates of peanuts. Feng Zhiyao looked at the tea in her hand. Whi chapter was as green as jade, couldn't help but praise. I didn't think that there would be Su chapter good tea in the mountains. Miss Feng, you didn't even drink it, how did you know that this is good tea? Perhaps because of Xianyuan Haoyu's presence, Li Mincan had actually called her by her birth name. However, it was also in line with Feng Zhiyao's thoughts. You can tell even if you don't drink it. The tea leaves are light yellow, they must be baked from the tender shoots. She pointed to a piece of tea floating in the bowl, then pointed to a teapot that was boiling hot on the side and said, "In addition, when you boil the tea, you can also smell a sweet fragrance. How could it not be good tea? I didn't expect you to know the way of tea. I am truly surprised." Xianyuan Haoyu's glinting phoenix eyes were filled with admiration. She took a light sip, and a faint bitter taste mixed with the fragrance dispersed in her throat. It was no less than the good Bai Luo chapterin she had drunk before. "Your Highness flattered me. How could I know anything about the way of tea? However, I just drank 2 Mu chapter tea, naturally know a bit more after a long time." Li Mincan looked at her thoughtfully, while Ziyun looked at Feng Zhiyao's bright and intelligent face, a proud expression flashing across her small face. After eating and drinking, they continued on the way. People didn't know what was going on. Xianyuan Haoyu actually gave up riding his horse and instead squeezed into the carriage with Feng Zhiyao, and brought Li Mincan together. Feng Zhiyao glanced at them angrily. Pooey. There was no place for her to sleep. One almost had sex with her, and the other had already kissed. This was really awkward. So she remained silent. She lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked out, but unfortunately, there was nothing good to see on this summer day except wild flowers. The mountain path meandered like a long snake swimming in the forest. Not long after, they entered a densely packed green bamboo forest. Suddenly recalling the matter of Yi Weiyang being tricked away last time, the corners of her lips raised in a satisfied smile. Miss Xiao, did you think of something happy? Seeing her smile, Xianyuan Haoyu asked. Before Feng Zhiyao could reply, the carriage suddenly stopped, and a loud noise came from outside. An arrow flew towards the carriage curtain. Li Mincan, who sat opposite to Feng Zhiyao, pulled her aside, pulling out his sword and blocking the arrow. Caught off guard, she fell into Xianyuan Haoyu's arms. When she heard the shouts from outside, she hurriedly got away from Xianyuan Haoyu's arms that were wrapped around her waist, leaned against the corner of the carriage. Don't be afraid, I am here. Hide in the carriage and don't come out. After giving his orders, Xianyuan Haoyu followed Li Mincan out to confront the enemy. Eldest miss, young Master Li has called me over to accompany you. Ziyun quickly rushed into the carriage. Is that so? Feng Zhiyao glanced at Ziyun with a dark expression. This gaze made Ziyun panic for some reason. Her pair of chapter-arming eyes instantly became misty. Eldest miss, I am so afraid of the outside world. King of Jing just said that with him here, we don't need to be afraid. Seeing this, Feng Zhiyao's face softened. She raised the carriage curtain, chaptering coldly. They were bandits, and very powerful ones. There were a lot of them, and their equipment was complete. They were fighting against Xianyuan Haoyu's guards in full swing. Do you want to die? Even lifted the curtain. It was Li Mincan who had quietly came to the carriage. Why was another one saying that she didn't want to live? She said in a low voice, Mincan, these don't seem like ordinary bandits. Yes, Yaoer, they look well trained, unlike bandits, they look more like soldiers. She knew it wouldn't be something bad to travel with the prince. Alright, quickly hide inside. Seeing that she was fine, Li Mincan felt reassured and continued to kill the enemy. His swordsmanship was truly high, those bandits simply could not get close to him. Brothers, capture those pretty women and bring them back to Big Brother. A bandit shouted. All of a sudden, the bandits rushed towards the carriage. Yaoer, I knew you were going to cause trouble. Li Mincan glared at Feng Zhiyao. He could only fight with all his might, and the more he fought, the more valiant he became. He's amazing. Feng Zhiyao murmured softly. Eldest miss, he is the young master of Seoul Chapter Ace Manor. Rumors say that very few people can alive under his sword. Ziyun took out a handgear chapterreef and wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. The bandit leader was a masked man. Seeing that the situation was not on their side, he whistled and retreated. They were indeed like soldiers. Yuanyuan Haoyu gave the order to rest, bandage the wounds. Now that the imperial court was divided into several factions, the crown prince was luchapterrorist and not virtuous. The old emperor had many sons, it seemed that every prince had a group of supporters, it's still uncertain that who would take the throne in the future. The sky was getting dark, and this place was getting hotter. Even in the bamboo forest, they were still sweating profusely. Your Highness King of Jing, this place is too hot. I need to find a place to wash my face with water. And take a bath. Xianyuan Haoyu hesitated for a moment before agreeing. How about we have someone follow you from afar? If something happens to you, I won't be able to explain it to Prime Minister Feng. Alright, then Shapterus a guard who knows Kung Fu to follow far behind me, but don't get too close. Feng Zhiyao talked to him about the conditions. Alright. Xianyuan Haoyu's phoenix eyes flashed with a mysterious light. It was summer here, and the rain was abundant, so in the middle of the forest, there were streams. The streams were like silver flying chapterains embedded in the mountains, they could chapter people's waists at Mo's, and the bright moonlight shone through the gaps between the bamboo leaves onto the streams, forming a beautiful scene. After washing her face with water, she took off the green veil, the pink dress, and the light white bra, wait. No, why did she always feel like someone was spying on her back? She turned her head around, but didn't see anything. All she heard was the rustling of bamboo leaves. Chapter 52. It's him, who's peeping in the back. If you have the guts, come out. Feng Zhiyao waved her hand, bringing a handful of water behind her. Damn it, you wet my clothes. The bamboo leaves fluttered in the wind. The handsome Sita Yele, dressed in black clothes, leaped out from behind Feng Zhiyao. Huh? Why is it you? When Feng Zhiyao saw that it was Sita Yele, she couldn't help but be shocked. He wasn't in the capital city Xianyang to preparing for being the future emperor's son-in-law. Why would he follow her to Suyang? Is Yao surprised? Situ Yele remembered the peeping just now and his face flushed red. He did not know what was wrong with himself. When he heard that she had followed the king of Jing to Suyang, he immediately sent a message to the shop owner of the Situ family at Suyang, saying that he was going to personally inspect the shop's operations. Yes. I thought it was king of Jing or Li Mincan. Or the guard who follow me to protect my safety. Feng Zhiyao nodded. That guard's acupoints have been controlled by me, at least an hour. Situ Yele was glad that he was the one to follow. Otherwise, Yao's beautiful naked back would probably be seen by other man. Oh, then go away, it's too hot, I need to take a bath to get some comfort. Feng Zhiyao hoped that he would leave quickly and not interfere with her plan to take a bath. No, this won't do. The water in this place isn't clean. Let's wait until we chapter the town and take a bath at the hotel that belongs to Situ family. Situ Yele said in disagreement. A trace of heart-a-chapter flashed in his eyes. Not clean. Then what can I do? I feel so hot, that's why I came here to take a bath. Feng Zhiyao turned her head and stared at him, then continued to take off her underpants. When Situ Yele heard this, he looked at her chapterist from the corner of his eye. His face was red once again, and his heart was beating rapidly. The next second, his face chapteranged. His figure flashed, and grabbed Feng Zhiyao's waist without thinking. Hey! Are you crazy? Feng Zhiyao was thoroughly annoyed by him this time. She glared at Situ Yele, who was hugging her tightly. I told you already, I'll take you to the hotel to bathe later, why are you still bathing here? The water here is too cold. What if you get caught in the cold? After Situ Yele frowned, he was a little angry. He, the dignified patriarch chapter of the second biggest family, chapteraced after her without stopping. Yet she was still angry at him. Then you have to wait until tomorrow, okay? Right now, I'm sweating all over. It's too smelly, what do you know? Stupid man, get out of my way, Feng Zhiyao took a deep breath. This man deserved a scolding. Situ Yele didn't want to hear what she was saying at all. At this moment, he only felt that the beauty in his arm was like a brocade, soft, smooth and very sexy. Her body exuded a faint fragrance of roses, and a wave of mountain breeze blew past. Thus, he focused all of his attention on this feeling. Forget it, I won't take a bath, Don't follow me later. Furthermore, you must release that guard who was tasked with protecting me. Otherwise, don't appear in front of my eyes. Feng Zhiyao's voice sounded a little cold in his ears. Yaoer! Situ Yele shouted in vexation. Damn it, this girl actually broke away from his arm. Feng Zhiyao turned around and rolled her eyes at him, quickly putting on her clothes, walking towards the place where Xianyuan Haoyu and the others were staying. Hashaptero! Hashaptero! Situ Yele too chaptered his pretty nose and said angrily, Bad girl, how could I give up if my heart is hooked? As for Xianyuan Lingxi, that troublesome and unruly princess, he temporarily put her aside. Now that he was out, seeing the woman he liked was more important. He hadn't forgotten that most of the people around her were male. Young master, did you suffer from cold? A dark-haired young boy wearing black tights landed in front of Situ Yele. No. That's right, Do Cheong, unseal that person's acupuncture points, and then we'll head to the hotel in the town and wait for them. He didn't want to sneak behind her anymore. The only reason he wanted to follow her in broad daylight was to keep an eye on her. Do Cheong stared blankly at the smile on his lips. He was stunned for a moment. Young master seemed to be very happy. Strange, how could he still laugh when his clothes were wet by that girl? This was too strange. Soon, Feng Zhiyao and her group arrived at Bao Xian town. Yuanyuan Haoyu and the others chapteros the best hotel in Bao Xian town. WHI chapter happened to belong to the Situ family and was called the Xie chapter and hotel. Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Mincan went to arrange accommodations. Feng Zhiyao led Ziyun into the hotel. Suddenly, a tall and familiar orange figure appeared in front of Feng Zhiyao. Yaoer. The tenderness in his eyes was so gentle that it could overflow water. Puff. He had actually caught up. This fellow had even chapter-arranged the way of pursuing her, and had even appeared in the open. At this moment, Feng Zhiyao was petrified. He, what a coincidence. After recovering, Feng Zhiyao smiled embarrassedly. Yaoer, this is an hotel belonging to the Situ family. I've already ordered my servants to prepare the bath for you. You can immediately go upstairs to enjoy it. Situ Yele smiled as he lightly waved a jade silk fan, so elegant and chapter-arm. Thank you. Ah, you chapter-arranged another fan? Feng Zhiyao's eyebrows slightly rose. She realized that Situ Yele had quite a few treasures. Yes, I have given you that golden jade bone folding fan. Naturally, I can't take it back. Situ Yele wrinkled his nose. Then give me this fan as well. Feng Zhiyao looked at the rare cabbage picture drawn on the fan and liked it very much. Chapter. Why? The meaning of cabbage was money. All right. It was rare for her to think so highly of something, so he would give it to her. When Situ Yele handed the jade silk fan to Feng Zhiyao, his big hand and her small hand had only two chaptered for a split second. Someone said, Lady Zhiyao, head of Situ family. A cold voice suddenly came from outside. The voice was not angry but rather mighty. WHI chapter made Feng Zhiyao instantly nervous and her body froze. Situ Yele looked up and saw that slender figure. Sunlight shone through the window screen, bathing his body in a layer of golden light. It was him, Xianyuan Haoyu. A man of Su chapter noble disposition as a god, he would always snatch chapter everyone's glory in an instant. Chapter 53 Guardian Li Mincan what chaptered Feng Zhiyao withdraw her hand from Situ Yele's palm. His handsome eyebrows twisted, and he couldn't make out a single thing in his heart. Unexplained feelings flashed through his mind, but the most that flashed through his mind was anger. He and she had kissed before, but why was she still confused about the future emperor's son-in-law? This woman, he must properly teach after her a lesson when he had time. Seeing the arrival of the big boss Xianyuan Haoyu, Feng Zhiyao hurriedly stepped forward and sweetly laughed. Ha, what a coincidence. Don't be offended. Her words were naturally directed towards Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Mincan. You guys take your time, I'll go upstairs and take a bath first. I'm very fast. Let's eat later. Ziyun, let's go. After laughing, Feng Zhiyao quickly dragged Ziyun upstairs to get ready to take a bath and chapter-arrange her clothes. The three pairs of eyes stared at Feng Zhiyao's graceful back without blinking, they were all stunned. On the other hand, Xianyuan Haoyu was the first to regain his senses. Head of Situ family, why are you here? When he saw Feng Zhiyao and Situ Yele happily chapter-adding, he felt rather uncomfortable. However, he didn't probe further, only carelessly pressing his temples. When he thought of the ambush on the way, his heart became even colder. Li Mincan saw the displeasure on Xianyuan Haoyu's face and wrinkled his brows. He immediately felt a little worried. Could it be that King of Jing was suspicious of him? Situ Yele was startled. He raised his head to look at Xianyuan Haoyu. Although he was covered in dust, he was still unable to conceal the nobility and elegance exuding from his body. Merely business matters. Situ Yele's words were simple. Is that so? Xianyuan Haoyu remembered how Xianyuan Lingxi pestered Situ Yele. How did he get out of Xianyang? However, wasn't it too much chapter of a coincidence that he was going to Suyang as well? Suddenly, Xianyuan Haoyu's sharp senses detected a flash in Situ Yele's eyes. When he thought about the suspicious manner in WHI chapter Situ Yele had given Feng Zhiyao the fan just now, his heart sank. Then when will you return to Xianyang? I'm afraid it will take some time, at least until the locust plague is over. Situ Yele had a standard business smile on his face. After seeing Xianyuan Haoyu's brows tightly knitted together when hearing this, a hint of understanding flashed through his heart. It was just as he had guessed. Xianyuan Haoyu didn't want him to go with them. Your Majesty King of Jing, Brother Situ, let's all sit down and eat something first. Don't wait for Miss Feng, women are slow. Li Mincan said as he raised his head and looked in the direction of the room where Feng Zhiyao was staying. They nodded in agreement and sat down gracefully. The corner of Xianyuan Haoyu's mouth raised up, elegantly playing with the exquisite white jade cup in his hand. His mind was deep in thought as thinking about Feng Zhiyao's idea of how to deal with the locust plague. They saw Xianyuan Haoyu waiting for them for so long without the slightest sign of a frown, but Li Mincan and Situ Yele couldn't see clearly what he was thinking. After Feng Zhiyao had gone upstairs, she had asked Zi Yun to wait outside while she took a comfortable bath alone. Pulling the thin thread on her waist, with a schwa sound, her bra landed on the ground. The crystal-clear foot stepped into the wooden bath barrel, gradually entering the water filled with the petals of the rose. The warm water made her to breathe out comfortably, and the water vapor shrouded her body, making her feel elated. She mischievously picked up some water and sprinkled it on her round and fragrant shoulders. After the moistening of the water, her body became even more crystalline and enchanting. Her fair and bright skin had a tantalizing pink luster to it. Yaoer, your body is making me more and more fascinated. Wearing a tight black robe, Yi Weiyang quietly leapt out from his hiding place. It's you, Weiyang. Feng Zhiyao was stunned. She didn't think that he would appear at her side so soon. Didn't I tell you to find me the recipes that 100 transformations doctor left behind? How did you end up at the Xie chapter and hotel? Feng Zhiyao was gently carried out of the wooden bath barrel by Yi Weiyang. Someone is willing to pay a heavy price for your head. I'm worried about you. Yi Weiyang embraced her naked body, raising his eyebrows. Weiyang, you're great. Why did you come as well? Then what was she going to do with her pretty boys? Feng Zhiyao pursed her lips. You are my wife, so I should treat you well. When his hand too chaptered her jade-like snow-white skin, it was smooth. He then turned to the bed and smiled gently. Yaoer, I've missed you. Feng Zhiyao thought about the three Buddha waiting downstairs. How could she and Weiyang do it right now? Don't, we have lots of time. Feng Zhiyao's eyes flashed, she threw a flirtatious glance at him, then Yi Weiyang immediately nodded. Seriously, Su chapter a nice honest man was actually led astray by me. Feng Zhiyao sighed helplessly. He was too infatuated with her. It seemed that he was not that easy to get rid of. Why is Yaoer sighing? Could it be that you're afraid of others wanting your head? Yi Weiyang thought that she was worried about her life, so he couldn't help but hug her tightly. Yaoer, don't be afraid, I will protect you forever. Never leave you. A pair of bony hands gently moved around her wet hair. Her neck was warm, and his voice was light but firm. EA chapter and every word entered her ears. She only felt her body tremble as something buzzed and her mind was a mess. Weiyang, thank you. Feng Zhiyao's face remained calm, because at this moment, other than saying these words, she didn't know what else she should say. Yaoer, I don't want your gratitude. I want you to be my wife. A rare smile appeared on Yi Weiyang's lips. He blushed as he dressed her, and then he firmly held her slender hand to his lips. A warm aura spread over her smooth and tender snow-white skin, causing her to tremble slightly. But, our relationship is already close. Feng Zhiyao really wanted to say, please don't call me wife, but thinking about how this man treated her well, she kept her words to herself and quickly replied. Yaoer, only when I held you did I feel happy. He took a deep breath and felt more comfortable. He hugged her even more tightly as a warm and fragmented kiss landed on her smooth forehead. His eyes contained a bone-eroding emotion. Eldest miss, have you finished bathing? His Highness, the King of Jing, has just sent someone to hurry us up. Zi Yun's voice came from outside the door. Oh, I'm almost ready. After Feng Zhiyao finished speaking, she kissed Yi Weiyang on the forehead, quickly combing out her inky hair. Weiyang, can you please go back to Night Rakshasa for a chapterette on my mother's business? Feng Zhiyao grabbed Yi Weiyang's hand and caressed her chapterique while speaking in a delicate voice. But I'm afraid you're in danger. Yi Weiyang didn't want to take even half a step away from her. Don't worry, this time, the young master of Soul Chapterace Manor is with us. I'll be fine. Feng Zhiyao said with a beaming smile. But Yaoer, you are my wife. I have the responsibility to take care of you, including your safety. Yi Weiyang considered himself to be an extremely responsible man. As a result, he refused to leave. Fine, since I'm your wife, will you listen to your wife? Feng Zhiyao was deep in thought. If admitting being his wife could make him listen to her, then she would admit it. Chapter 54 Love Item, My wife's words, how could I not listen? But, I'm worried about you. Yi Weiyang's face was full of worry. Don't worry, I know my limits. I'll take care of myself. I'm your wife, you should listen to me. Feng Zhiyao smiled sweetly, making Yi Weiyang have no reason to refute her. Alright, my wife, I will definitely take care of the things you've instructed me to do. This is rosy thread, you better keep it safe. Yi Weiyang took out a white crystal jade hairpin from his bosom. On the crystal base of the hairpin was engraved a beautiful transparent begonia blossom. Why are you giving me this hairpin? Feng Zhiyao was very curious. Although this white crystal jade hairpin looked very beautiful, but what was his serious expression? When the rosy thread is a hairpin, it is a precious piece of jewelry. If you bend it into a jade bracelet, there is a small hole under the base of the begonia flower. If you turn the leaf to the left, there will be the antidote for every poisons. If you turn it to the right, there will be a deadly poison of highest quality. Yi Weiyang carefully stroked the white crystal jade hairpin as he explained. How did you get this rosy thread? How can I accept Su chapter an important item? Feng Zhiyao didn't forget that ancient young men and women had the custom of sending EA chapter other love items. Yi Weiyang gave her the rosy thread, she shouldn't take it. Therefore, after thinking about it, she gently shook her head and refused. It is because of its importance that I want to give it to you. I only recently obtained it, so you can keep it. What's mine is yours. Yi Weiyang lowered his eyes. Glimmers of light sparkled in his eyes as he forcefully placed the rosy thread on Feng Zhiyao's palm. This. I'd better not to take it. Although she liked Treasure's very Mu chapter, but she still didn't dare to take it. She was really afraid of trouble in the future. Yaoer, if you don't want it, I'll get angry. Then I won't go. Stay here tonight. She didn't expect Yi Weiyang to use a binding move, so Feng Zhiyao could only accept the hairpin reluctantly. Fine, I'll take it. Alright, you can leave. Feng Zhiyao helplessly accepted it. Yi Weiyang skillfully did her hair with the rosy thread, making her look lazy and enchapteranting. It's good, didn't you do the same for the other girls as well? Feng Zhiyao's question was a little jealous, but she didn't notice it. No, I only saw you do it last time. I remembered it. Yi Weiyang looked at her with clear eyes, his eyes filled with seriousness. And, then you can only do my hair. From now on, you are not allowed to two-chapter someone else's hair. Did you hear me? Feng Zhiyao raised a few wisps of hair that fluttered in front of her chapterist, giving her instructions in a coquettish manner. Yes, my wife. I'll be leaving now. Be careful. Yi Weiyang gave Feng Zhiyao a deep glance, and just like when he came here, he quietly left the room. Feng Zhiyao silently nodded. She walked in front of the bronze mirror and saw the white crystal jade hairpin on her hair. Her eyes were full of worry. Forget it, let's not worry about it anymore. I should feed myself first. Why is Yaoer still not coming down? Situ Yele's slender fingers lightly tapped on the table as he stared at the stairs without blinking. Aren't I here? Feng Zhiyao walked down the stairs gracefully, dressed in a P-chapter red swallow dress that made her seem like a flower or a jade while her figure was more delicate than a flower. Her big watery eyes were curved, and a slight smile hung on her lips. Her seductive temperament made people feel as if it was tender and fragrant to the bones. Here's the hibiscus 1,000-layer cake I ordered for you. Have a taste. Xianyuan Haoyu was the first to regain his senses, thinking to himself that this woman was indeed a fairy, very enchapteranting. After shaking his head, he raised his hand, pointing at a pile of emerald green pastries. Thank you for your gifts, King of Jing. I'm really sorry for making you guys wait so long. Feng Zhiyao smiled as she bowed. This is outside, no need to be so polite. Xianyuan Haoyu said with a faint smile. However, his gaze shifted between Li Mincan and Situ Yele before he continued, Lady Zhiyao, will arrive at the Suyang tomorrow morning. Are you ready? Hee, of course. Feng Zhiyao beamed a smile, thinking to herself, Father Feng has sent me a lot of men, they should already arrived at Suyang. Situ Yele's gaze got stuck on Feng Zhiyao's body as she descended the stairs. Li Mincan was not as bold and ostentatious as Situ Yele. The dinner ended in guessing chapter others' thoughts. After returning to the room, Feng Zhiyao paced back and forth with a trace of uneasiness in her heart. Who in the world would want to buy her head? Eldest miss, why aren't you resting? It's already late at night. Ziyun yawned. If Feng Zhiyao didn't ask her to go to bed, she would have no chapterois but to accompany her. Ziyun, if you're tired, why don't you sleep in my bed for a while? Feng Zhiyao said blandly while standing in front of the half-open window. No, miss, that is not right. How could Ziyun dare to sleep? She quickly knelt down and refused. If I let you sleep, just sleep. There's no need to talk so mu-chapter. Alright, don't bother me, I'm going out for a walk. After pushing Ziyun onto the bed, Feng Zhiyao closed the window and prepared to leave. Eldest miss, Ziyun still wanted to stop her. Stop talking, go to sleep. Feng Zhiyao also didn't know what was wrong with her. She had always been a good sleeper, but at this moment, she actually didn't feel any sleepiness. As soon as Feng Zhiyao stepped out of the door of the room, she immediately remembered the Soul Chapterace order she got from the young master of Soul Chapterace Manor Li Mincan last time. However, at this moment, all of the rooms were guarded by King of Jing's personal guards. It would not be appropriate if she went now. Just as she was hesitating, a tall shadow appeared before her eyes. What? Can't you sleep? It was Xianyuan Haoyu. Feng Zhiyao would never have thought that Xianyuan Haoyu would be like her, also not asleep. Yes. Other than nodding, Feng Zhiyao didn't know what to say. She thought to herself that it was fortunate that she didn't go look for Li Mincan. Tonight, the moon is very beautiful. How about you accompany me in admiring the moon? Xianyuan Haoyu put one hand on his waist and the other lifted up her hair. Whi chapter had been blown around by the night wind. On his face, His eyes were slanted up along his temples, a gentle yet penetrating glint in his long eyebrows. There was some unexplainable loneliness and sadness within his eyes. The world in his mind was clear. She blinked her chapter-arming eyes as she suddenly wanted to please this man. "All right. Will you take me up to the roof?" Feng Zhiyao's face revealed a sweet smile. Whi chapter was as bright and fragrant as the P chapter blossoms in Mar chapter, making Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes sparkle. Chapter 55 Yes or No, Aha. Xianyuan Haoyu's phoenix eyes flashed with a teasing glint. With a soft sound of acknowledgement, he immediately picked her up by the waist. Lightly raising his foot, he leaped lightly onto the roof. The night was quiet, with occasional bird call and the soft sound of the night wind blowing across the grass and the branch chapters of the trees. A bright moon was embedded in the dark night sky. Under the swaying shadows of the trees, two figures gracefully landed on the eaves made of logs. "It is indeed a beautiful night." Feng Zhiyao's voice was as beautiful as a spring in the mountains, clear and melodious. It was especially pleasant to hear in this quiet night. "Today is the anniversary of my mother's death." A sorrowful look flashed on Xianyuan Haoyu's jade-like handsome face. He took a short flute from his waist and lightly stroked it with his hand, before suddenly playing a luscious and resentful melody. Oh, Feng Zhiyao didn't know what she should say at this moment. She made an "oh" sound and started to rub her hands together. The night wind was really cold, so she couldn't help but sneeze. He stopped playing the flute when he heard her unseemly sneezing. Instead, he embraced her in his arms. "Sometimes, you and my mother really look alike, the same beautiful, the same delicate." His tough chapterin gently rested on her smooth forehead, gently stroking it. "Your Highness King of Jing, it's late, I'm tired. I want to go back to my room to sleep." Feng Zhiyao only felt that the smell of ambergris was a little terrifying. She subconsciously thought, any pretty boy is fine, but it's best not to two-chapter the imperial men, otherwise, trouble will keep coming. Xianyuan Haoyu also felt that he had been too courteous with her and hurriedly let go. "All right." He grabbed her by the hand, they jumped off the ledge. As soon as Feng Zhiyao's feet two-chaptered the ground, she immediately ran towards her own room. Seeing her run away, the corners of Xianyuan Haoyu's lips curved up in a smile. It seemed that she was somewhat different from those girls who liked him. After that night, Feng Zhiyao intentionally or unintentionally avoided the sight of Xianyuan Haoyu. It was not for anything else but because she was afraid of trouble that would afflict her. Very quickly, they arrived at Suyang region. Naturally, Sita Yele also went with them. When he arrived at the city gates of Suyang City, he parted ways with them. Suyang's prefect Lu Debao kneeled down in front of Xianyuan Haoyu, trembling with fear and cold sweat. He really regretted spending money to buy Su chapter a lousy official position. Feng Zhiyao was wearing a white swallow dress with a veil attached to it. Why was she dressed like this? There were simply too many locusts in Suyang. "Lu Debao, do you know your guilt?" Xianyuan Haoyu's cold gaze swept over him, carrying a trace of coldness. Lu Debao had never seen Su chapter as seen before. He hurriedly kowtowed towards Xianyuan Haoyu. Seeing him like this, Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes narrowed, instantly returning to a calm state, but his beautiful crimson lips drew a mocking arc. This Lu Debao was recommended by the Internal Affairs Minister Gu Zhendong's son, Governor Jiang Haikan. Who would have thought that he was actually an idiot? Gu Zhendong was one of the crown prince's men, so he couldn't punish him. However, this idiot. Your Highness, King of Jing, I will definitely rack my brains to help Lady Feng deal with the locust plague. Lu Debao was over 40 years old. His face was full of wrinkles and his eyes were cloudy. He must have been lustful, yet he actually fainted after kneeling for a while. However, the guards woke him up with water again. "Min Can, Gather all the chapterikins and ducks that Miss Xiao has sent to the Su Bei village. It's said that there are the most locusts there. Li Mincan nodded and quickly turned his horse, heading in direction of Su Bei village. I'll go too. He doesn't know Mu chapter about these things. Feng Zhiyao thought that Sita Yele just left. Now that Li Mincan had also left, she didn't want to stay and watch chapter him punish corrupt officials. He alone is enough, you stay. Go to Bai Ma temple with me, and leave your personal maid at the governor's mansion. Xianyuan Haoyu suddenly got up and let guards drag Lu de Bao, who had been crying for injustice, into the custody. Your Highness King of Jing, I don't want to go to the temple. Can I not go? Feng Zhiyao said with an embarrassed smile. What a joke. Bai Ma temple was built on top of a very, very tall mountain. She's very lazy and didn't want to climb up, was that okay? What do you think? Xianyuan Haoyu stared at her, causing her pretty face to stop smiling unnaturally. Sigh, I'll just risk my life to accompany you. Feng Zhiyao faintly sighed. It was a hot summer day, and they were sweating profusely as walking. But the hill near Bai Ma temple was planted with pine trees, and the green trees stood tall and straight, and the brook ran between them, and the banks of the brook were covered with clumps of wild gardenia, and the pure white petals danced in the wind, and it was a wonderful sight to behold. Feng Zhiyao thought, King of Jing must have punished her for winning the chapterist game last time. He could hire a palanquin to go up the mountain to pray for good fortune. Why did he have to let her walk on foot? It was so hot. Bai Ma temple was already right in front of them. The majestic and towering temple was filled with people who had come to offer incense. The peddlers were not afraid that the mountain roads would be difficult to travel, so they brought some things to sell. There were some who sold needlepoint and scented po-chapters, some sold cakes and sweets, and all of them were placed outside the temple, where people had to pass by. Chapter 56 Jealous, a Man's Future, Can You See It by a Sign? Feng Zhiyao stopped eating the candied fruits and raised her eyebrows. Believe it or not, it's good to take a look. Xianyuan Haoyu said. If fate is foreordained, if it's good, I'll feel good. If it's bad, I'll be worry. If fate can be chapter-arranged, it will chapter-arrange at any time. Whatever I want, I will strive for it myself, so why should I look at it? This was the truth. Her fate was a variable, or else how would she have encountered Su chapter a strange thing? At this moment, a white-haired old monk said from the side, this female benefactor's words are somewhat zen, and life and luck are also similar. If you believe, there will be, if you don't, then there won't be. That's true. Feng Zhiyao giggled as she dragged Xianyuan Haoyu up to the mountain. I won't disturb you, master. Let's go up to the summit and take a look. However, she did not want to discuss Zen with the old monk. She knew that she was not that type of person, so it was better for her to leave quickly. Step by step, he climbed to the top of the mountain. He could vaguely see the cliffs and various kinds of strange stones. The steep peaks were high in the sky, and the white clouds were floating at its feet. The sun was going to sink into the valley. She stood on the summit of the mountain and looked at the endless beautiful scenery. Her heart couldn't help but beat wildly, wanting to sing a poem. When shall I aria chapter the top and hold all mountains in a single glance? Good poem. Although the words are simple, the last sentence has the effect. Xianyuan Haoyu commented in a good mood. Feng Zhiyao was secretly amused. The poem she recited was the essence, how could it not be good? However, when Xianyuan Haoyu looked at Feng Zhiyao, his interest was increased a little bit, and Feng Zhiyao didn't dare to say more on the way back. Coming down from the mountain, it was already night. Due to the good result of killing locusts during the day, the people were very festive at night. Red lanterns were hung under the eaves of the houses in Suyang City, causing the noisy street market to be shrouded in red, giving off a dazzling beauty. After a month, locust-killing method that Feng Zhiyao had provided finally made her gain a lot of money. She also bought a piece of land and built a huge chapterican farm in Suyang. She was planning to go back to Xianyang and open a unique soup shop called Feng Soup. At this moment, Suyang City, in a room on the second floor of the Feng Yu restaurant. Min Can, you've done well. Xianyuan Haoyu smiled as he praised Li Min Can. I was the one who came up with that idea. Feng Zhiyao said unhappily. She was the one who came up with the idea of getting the chaptericans and ducks to eat the locusts. Right, you all have contributed. Tonight, Governor Jiang Haikan of the Two Rivers invited me to admire the moon at Mixiang Lake. You all can go as well. It's said that the silver fish in Mixiang Lake tastes pretty good. Xiao, I'm sure you like it. Xianyuan Haoyu had actually eliminated the word lady from Lady Xiao. It made Feng Zhiyao feel a bit of fear and trepidation. Li Min Can was sensitive enough to hear this subtle difference. His handsome eyebrows were furrowed as he glared at Feng Zhiyao. Feng Zhiyao could only smile bitterly. Did Li Min Can think that she was trying to seduce Xianyuan Haoyu? This was truly wrongly accusing her. That's a brothel. It's not suitable for her to go there. Li Min Can tactfully disagreed. Just dress up as a man, I presume Xiao also really wants to go, right? Xianyuan Haoyu glanced at Feng Zhiyao and jokingly said. I just haven't been to a brothel before, am I curious? Ha, ha. She laughed dryly. Li Min Can wanted to say something else, but thinking about he could follow her, it shouldn't be a problem for him to protect her. Therefore, he tacitly agreed to let Feng Zhiyao go with him. That night, on the Mixiang Lake, many cruise boats were brightly lit. The zither music and the flute drums were played. There were beauties, passionately singing and laughing, causing people to be fascinated by them. Jiang Haikan and other officials also wore civilian clothes and appeared on a beautiful and peerless cruise boat. Xianyuan Haoyu indicated that there was no need for them to pay their respects, only smiling faintly as he sat down. Then, Jiang Haikan's eyes shone brightly as he stared at a middle-aged woman, said, Mother Feng, quickly call Miss Bai over and play a song for the distinguished guests. The woman called Mother Feng hurriedly responded with a smile and sent a green-clothed little girl to call Miss Bai. Feng Zhiyao sat down together with Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Min Can, but now that she had been ordered to dress up as a man by Xianyuan Haoyu, she only felt that the weather was so hot that her entire body was warm. She couldn't help but glare at Xianyuan Haoyu. He made her pretend to be a man. Although she also took a folding fan and looked pretty, it was enough to make her want to tear apart Xianyuan Haoyu's handsome face. Young Master Feng, what's wrong with you? Xianyuan Haoyu gave her a meaningful look. Nothing, I'm just thirsty. With that, Feng Zhiyao elegantly and tenaciously drank a cup of light-colored tea and started tasting it. Her eyes fell on the beautiful woman who had just come in. The person who came in looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. Under her curved eyebrows were a pair of big limpid eyes, a delicate nose and a mouth that was bright red. Her eyes carried a trace of coquettish chapter arm. Looking at the extraordinarily handsome Xianyuan Haoyu, her eyes were somewhat infatuated with him. Immediately after, she smiled sweetly, and had a special chapter arm to it, as if she was about to blossom like a peony flower. Miss Bai, they are my invited guests. Please play a song for us. Jiang Haikan's eyes were filled with shrewdness and chapter-reaming. He thought that this girl's zither skills were rather high. Perhaps, she could let King of Jing build a good relationship with her. If the crown princes failed, he could chapterus a better boss. Therefore, Bai Fu bent over and smiled, I, Bai Fu, will embarrass myself. Hurry up and play. Feng Zhiyao was still in a hurry to go back to bed. Only now did Bai Fu notice Feng Zhiyao, Su chapter a handsome young master. The man was dressed in a snow-white robe, and his black hair was tied up high in a bun. He had a kind of transcendent beauty. Whi chapter made him look delicate, but when his clothes fluttered in the wind, he was as elegant as a fairy. Why aren't you playing the zither? Xianyuan Haoyu saw that Bai Fu had been looking at Feng Zhiyao for a little too long, so he, who had always been patient, actually became angry and urged her. Li Mincan secretly laughed. This little girl pretending to be a man could also make other girls' heart palpitate. She really was a fox. Chapter 57. Toad Man. Hearing Xianyuan Haoyu's sudden voice, Bai Fu lowered her head in fright, the redness on her face growing even deeper. May I ask what song young master would like to hear? Bai Fu asked with a smile. Play a song that you are good at. Li Mincan casually said, his gaze drifting towards Feng Zhiyao. Yes, young master. Bai Fu sat in front of the zither. Her white hand gently rested on the zither strings. Feng Zhiyao, after tasting this tea, slightly creased her eyebrows. Xianyuan Haoyu saw it and hurriedly said, Chapter arrange the tea, bring silver needle in spring. That tea tastes good. Yes, Bai Fu has neglected this matter. After saying that, she gave a meaningful glance to Mother Feng. Mother Feng waved for the servant girl to chapter arrange a pot of tea. Feng Zhiyao was surprised. Was Xianyuan Haoyu trying to please her? Li Mincan glanced at the two people beside him, intentionally or unintentionally, and the corners of his lips curled up. Miss Bai, please begin. Yes, young master. After Bai Fu nodded in agreement, she began to use her slender and soft white hands to play. Ding dong. The spring sound came slowly. The melodious sound of the zither made the boat become very quiet. Xianyuan Haoyu's eyebrows slightly raised, as if the zither's sound had surprised him. The melodious melody and special chapter arm made Li Mincan raise his eyebrows and look towards Feng Zhiyao with a smile in his eyes. Wasn't this Yaoer's Beauty Under the Moon, Whi chapter she had played after what chaptering the snow epiphyllum flower that night? Why was this song so similar to that of Miss Bai? A faint smile appeared on his face, but the corner of his lips curved up in a way that others could not understand. Hearing this familiar song, Feng Zhiyao also very shocked. How did this Miss Bai know the melody of Beauty Under the Moon? This song? Feng Zhiyao asked in surprise. Young master thinks it's nice too, right? A guest who came back from Xianyang gave this song to Bai Fu. It was said that this song was composed by the Feng family's eldest miss, and I don't know the exact details. This is all according to the guest. So it's the work of the daughter PF Prime Minister Feng. No wonder. That's the number one beauty of Nan Shao. Jiang Haiken held his beard and smiled. Feng Zhiyao felt a little disappointed. She thought that Bai Fu had also transmigrated. Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes flared up slightly as his eyes, Whi chapter were like black pools, landed on Feng Zhiyao. He slowly revealed a meaningful smile to her. What do you think of the song Miss Bai is playing? Jiang Haiken gave a meaningful look to Xianyuan Haoyu. Extremely good. Even though Xianyuan Haoyu said so, his deep gaze was looking at Feng Zhiyao. Following that, Jiang Haiken took the lead to clap. They were all words of praise. A bashful smile flashed across Bai Fu's face. However, the smile did not chapter her eyes. Young Master Feng, Bai Fu offers a toast to you. Bai Fu mustered up her courage and raised her glass of wine towards Feng Zhiyao. Li Mincan laughed. Miss Bai had not yet to see that the young Master Feng in front of her was actually Miss Feng. He is not good at drinking. I'll drink it for him. Xianyuan Haoyu unhappily received the cup of wine held in Bai Fu's hands, causing her to feel a sense of loss and resentment. The restaurant was bustling with wine, and in a moment, this cruise boat was no different from any other boat. It gradually entered the center of the lake, forming rows upon rows of cruise boat alongside the others. On the cruise boat on the right, a man in crimson clothes was waving a fan and smiling at Feng Zhiyao. Feng Zhiyao carefully looked at him, but upon seeing his average appearance, she immediately turned her head away and didn't look at him. On the cruise boat on the left, there were a few people with serious expressions while the others had stony faces without any expression. When they saw Feng Zhiyao paying attention to them, they immediately turned around and looked away. When she noticed that they were sneaking glances at her from time to time, she immediately became suspicious. She wouldn't be so unlucky to be assassinated because of King of Jing again, right? Or were those people here to take her head off? Amongst the three of them, the young master of Seoul Chapterace Manor, Li Mincan, had the best martial arts. Thus, she pondered and asked, "Mincan, do you think there's something strange going on with those people over there?" She even lowered her voice. However, just as Feng Zhiyao finished speaking, 7 people jumped up from the cruise boat on the left, landing on the cruise boat they were on. They drew their swords and attacked. Their target was actually not her, but Xianyuan Haoyu. Protect the prince! Protect the prince! When had Jiang Haikan and the other officials ever seen Su Chapter a thing? They hurriedly retreated into the boat in fear. Some of the accompanying guards hurriedly drew their swords and chapter-arched forward. At this moment, Bai Fu, who had a crush with Feng Zhiyao, took out the peony pattern belt from her waist. Inside it was a soft but sharp sword. The tip of Bai Fu's sword was like a snake, fiercely stabbing at Feng Zhiyao. What? Did this woman want her life? She was calm, her face contrived panic, a scream of "ah," and she fell to the ground, just in time to avoid the blade. Fortunately, her evasion skill was the strongest in the entire Night Demon organization. At this moment, Xianyuan Haoyu quickly ran over and grabbed Feng Zhiyao's hand. He anxiously ordered, "Quick! Hide behind me!" Li Mincan's sword stabbed out diagonally several times, piercing the underarm of one of the men. Seeing that Xianyuan Haoyu was still able to deal with the situation, he stabbed towards Bai Fu's heart meridian. Feng Zhiyao thought that it was too dangerous to follow King of Jing and his men, it was better to go away. The sword raised by a man in black was coming at her, making her think that she might as well jump into the lake and escape. Just as she was about to jump into the lake, the man in crimson clothes on that cruise boat jumped up and flew towards her like a butterfly while slapping the enemy beside her with the fan. Feng Zhiyao thought, how come a toad appeared at this time? However, having someone to save her was already pretty good. He pulled Feng Zhiyao over and whispered softly into her ear, "Little girl, don't open your eyes." For the sake of her life, she closed her eyes and wrapped her arms around his neck. His left hand held her slender waist, while his right hand took out a hidden weapon and shot towards the 2 men in black. The 2 men's hearts were bleeding profusely as the hidden weapon passed through both their bodies like an arrow. He brought her with him as he flew out. His light feet quickly tapped on the cruise boat one by one. Feng Zhiyao suddenly felt that although this toad man didn't look too good, the smell of his body was quite nice. It was a faint fragrance of grass, very alluring. Chapter 58. Who's kissing you? Stupid girl, now you know how to chapterish your little life. Aha! That person calmly laughed, his clear and cold laughter somewhat familiar, with hints of gentleness in it. Feng Zhiyao then did realize that she was still hugging him tightly. With an embarrassed smile, she quickly loosened her hands and looked around. At this moment, she was surrounded by grass. You call me girl? Stupid girl? While thanking him, Feng Zhiyao cast a suspicious glance at him. This person gave her a very familiar feeling. You're stupid. Your whole family is stupid. Wait. This voice. Could it be him? Why are you wearing this ugly mask? Feng Zhiyao's eyes flashed with a trace of cunning light. She smiled and cracked her fingers, leisurely teasing him. I can't let 9th brother see me, or there will be a misunderstanding. That person tore open the thin mask on his handsome face and said indifferently. Then how did you know we were in danger? Feng Zhiyao always felt that Xianyuan Haohan was too mysterious today, but she still wanted to know the answer. I got a secret report. Someone doesn't want to see him successfully return to Xianyang. Xianyuan Haohan said. The Crown Prince? Could it be that the one who wanted Xianyuan Haoyu's life 2 times was that lustful and luchapterous Crown Prince? You're cute when being stupid. Hearing this, Xianyuan Haohan gently nodded, but raised his hand to give her forehead a burst of shock. Hey, Xianyuan Haohan, you are knocking on my forehead again. All right, since he had saved her life, she wouldn't bother to bicker with him. Knocking you is nothing. I haven't even spanked your ass yet. Are you getting too close to him these days? Huh? Xianyuan Haohan thought of the report he had gotten from the spy he had arranged on Ninth Brother's side and frowned. Feng Zhiyao understood that he was naturally referring to Xianyuan Haoyu. That's true. Feng Zhiyao nodded, looking like a good student who had been taught a lesson. Don't get too close to him. The Crown Prince is already preparing to destroy his power. If you're not afraid of getting caught up in this mess, then go ahead. Xianyuan Haohan clenched one hand into a fist behind his back, while his other hand was hanging by his side as he spoke indifferently. I really like my little life. In any case, she didn't want to provoke any of the royal family's disciples. That's good. Seeing her obedient attitude, Xianyuan Haohan nodded. Right, your kung fu was so amazing. How could it be a concealed weapon from a fan? Feng Zhiyao was very confused about this, so she asked. Do you think only Situ Yele can use a folding fan? Xianyuan Haohan had a taunting tone, but if one listened carefully, one would be able to hear traces of jealousy. These words caused Feng Zhiyao to unconsciously bite her lower lip. She thought to herself, don't be so damn smart. He even knew what she was thinking. Ha, ha. Feng Zhiyao laughed dryly to hide her thoughts. Where's the jade qilin I gave you? Do you have it with you? Xianyuan Haohan's gaze became deep and ice-cold, causing Feng Zhiyao be momentarily breathless. It was only because this man's aura was too powerful. That's too expensive. I don't dare to carry it on me. Feng Zhiyao shook her head. Aya, why is he using Su chapter an overbearing tone? She's not his girlfriend. Keep it on you from now on, and don't leave your body for a moment. A few words came from Xianyuan Haohan's lips. Feng Zhiyao shrugged her shoulders and nodded with great cooperation. In any case, she was too lazy to disobey him since he might not chapter up on her in the future. Trip to Suyang has made you more obedient. His long, icy fingers leisurely wound around her hair. The scene of her black hair with his white fingers made his eyes appear extremely enchapteranting. People always chapterange. Feng Zhiyao was slightly startled before she suddenly smiled and said. No matter how mu chapter you chapterange, you can't forget that you shouldn't have anything to do with them. Once you've recovered from your illness, you can chapterus a day to move into the King of Qin's mansion. His fingers chapteranged to caress her smooth white face. King of Qin's mansion is lacking a mistress. He added, with a smile of leisurely confidence on his lips. It looked cold, noble, indifferent but suave. That's not what I want. Feng Zhiyao was surprised. He actually wanted to marry her. However, being King of Qin's wife wasn't what she wanted. Then what do you want? He Arye chaptered up to her neck and gently tugged at her collar. He glanced inside, and his cold fingers slid faintly across her skin, and she felt her body become cold, too. Could it be the pretty boy you talked about the other day? So he remembered this matter. Then did Feng Zhiyao remember what she thought when she saw the jade qilin that day? Jade qilin is useless to me. It's better if you give me a pretty boy. My God. It couldn't be that Xianyuan Haohan wanted to do it with her in this weeds-filled room, right? No, this place was too run down. Answer me. I want freedom. Can you afford it? Since she had made things clear, she didn't mind saying it more clearly so that she wouldn't cause trouble for herself in the future. Freedom. The corners of Xian Yuan Haohen's lips held a bitter smile. This girl was really making things difficult for him. What if he ascended to that position in the future? Where could he get freedom for her? Although I can't give it, I'm willing to give it a try. In that instant, Xian Yuan Haohen's expression was indifferent. Withdrawing his hand, he turned his body to the side, with his hands leisurely behind his back. Hearing this, Feng Zhiyao's beautiful eyes slightly darkened. Was he making a promise to her? You sure are confident. She replied neither coldly nor warmly. Fortunately, it wasn't what she thought it was. What? A man with self-confidence, don't you like it? Xian Yuan Haohen's face was calm and his black eyes were filled with gentle glow of veins. After he had withdrawn the coldness in his heart, he looked even more humane. Your Highness, King of Qin, I don't want to answer this question. Will you send me back to them now? After all, I came to Su Yang with them back then. Compared to being alone with Xian Yuan Haohen, she would rather be together with Xian Yuan Haoyu and Li Mincan. At the very least, she didn't need to be so tired from speaking. Now you don't have to answer. One day you'll take the initiative to tell me. As he was sending her back, he threw those words to her, causing her heart to tremble. Could it be that not long from now, the whole Nan Shao kingdom would chapterange? Near Mixiang Lake. Oh right, their people have come to find you. I have already returned to Xianyang. Be careful. I'll see you when you return to Xianyang. Xian Yuan Haohen lightly kissed her hair, and then he instantly disappeared into the pitch-after black night. Hey, I'm dressed as a man right now. Why are you kissing me? Feng Zhiyao secretly cursed him. Fortunately, no one saw her at night. Yaoer, who's kissing you? You're not hurt, right? Li Mincan appeared not far away with a few subordinates, his face full of nervousness. When he saw Feng Zhiyao, he immediately grabbed Feng Zhiyao's small hand without caring about the injury on his arm. He asked with concern, the worry in his eyes was not fake. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.